Chapter 101, Warm Tea Kills Evil Spirits. A presumptuous question? Aoki said. Please go ahead, head of the Ubuyashiki family. Ubuyashiki Kagaya said seriously, Mr. Aomura, have you overcome the sunlight? No, Aoki shook his head. He thought it was a sensitive topic. In fact, the sunlight is no longer a threat to him now. Of course, this does not mean that sunlight cannot kill him, but even if he is forced to be exposed to sunlight, he can enter another space to hide without worrying about his life. Especially now that the space shuttle is strengthened and has become an instinct. As long as he is conscious, no one can kill him. If you want to make him lose consciousness, you can refer to other upper moons. It is basically an impossible task. Additionally, he has broken through the limit and will not die even if beheaded by a Nikaran sword. The Demon Slayer core is no longer a threat to him. Ubuyashiki Kagaya nodded gently. In this case, the mission time is still at night. Yes, Aoki said. If you find a demon during the day, you can let the team members handle it themselves, but please leave the 2 upper moons to me. Kagaya smiled. Mr. Aomura, don't worry. If we find the upper moons, we will notify you as soon as possible. To fight the upper moons, at least 2 Hashira are needed. Moreover, there is a high probability of casualties. Especially for one particular upper moon, it might require most of the Hashira of the Demon Slayer Corps to join forces. The Hashira are not afraid of sacrifice. However, why not use better and safer methods? Kagaya said again, Mr. Aomura, there is one more thing. Would you like to stay here? Stay here? Aoki looked at him in surprise. Kagaya smiled. Living here, Mr. Aomura, you can receive information as soon as possible, and there will be no need to send it to the butterfly house. You can also rest assured about your daily needs, we will take care of everything. Aoki pondered for a while and agreed. Being able to receive information faster really excited him. As for daily needs, it didn't matter. As a demon, he didn't need to eat, drink, or use the bathroom, and his material requirements were extremely low. At most, he just needed to take a bath. Night gradually fell. Sister, Shinobu walked into the room and greeted her. Kane smiled. Shinobu, you're here. Come eat quickly. Shinobu sat down next to her, drank the flavor-enhancing soup first, then picked up the chopsticks and took a piece of golden fried fish. Sister, it's been a day. Why hasn't Mr. Aomura come back yet? Kane said, in order to receive information faster, Mr. Aomura will live in the Lord's house in the future. Shinobu was stunned and muttered, he left without saying a word. Kane smiled. Mr. Aomura didn't say he wouldn't come to the butterfly house. He still has to guide Kaneo. Anyway, with the space shuttle, it's very convenient to travel. At the same time, Aoki received the first piece of information. Ubuyashiki Amane said in a serious tone, in the northeast direction, the team members sent intelligence and found the traces of a demon. The wound on Ubuyashiki Kagaya's face had spread to his eyes, and he was completely blind. She had to help with daily chores. Okay, I'll leave now. Aoki didn't waste any words, greeted the 2, and his figure suddenly disappeared. Amane poured a cup of hot tea for Kagaya. I hope everything goes well. Don't worry. With Mr. Aomura taking action, there will be no problem. Kagaya tasted a sip of tea. Although his condition was getting worse, he had been in a very good mood recently. The upper moons died one after another, and he could feel that they were getting closer and closer to defeating Muzan Kabutsuji. The dream that had lasted for thousands of years finally had the possibility of realization in his generation. 2 team members lay motionless in the grass, watching a demon feasting below. Blood was everywhere, and the scene was very bloody. One of the young men with short hair whispered, when will the support arrive? They said it will be very soon. How soon is very soon? His companion did not speak. After a while, the young man with short hair gritted his teeth and said, why don't we go? By the time the reinforcements arrive, the demon may have already escaped. The companion was a little hesitant. Their mission was to report the demon's traces immediately after discovering them, without engaging themselves. It was originally carried out according to plan, but the demon had suddenly appeared unexpectedly. No. I can't stand it anymore. The young man with short hair was about to get up when the demon below suddenly put down the corpse in his hand, stood up, and looked up at the sky. Exposed? The two were startled, and their expressions became firm, ready to strike first. Suddenly, a black shadow fell from the sky. With a puff, they didn't see what happened clearly, and the demon's head exploded like a watermelon. A tall black-haired young man stood where the demon was before, with a pair of huge black wings behind him, exuding an unfathomable aura. Strong fear swept through their bodies, and they both swallowed hard, their bodies frozen, not daring to move. Kill a demon and gain 1 experience point. Aoki. Okay, at least it was not a wasted trip. In addition to experience, he could feel that there were some things accumulated, which should be attribute points and skill points. Turning off the system, Aoki looked towards the hillside next to him. The two people were lying there, and they could vaguely see that they were wearing Demon Slayer uniforms. They should be the members who were delivering the information. Aoki nodded towards the two of them, without contacting them, and disappeared into thin air. After a while, the two of them got up. Just now, what was that? The short-haired young man swallowed. He still felt that his legs were weak. Especially when the other party looked towards them, they almost couldn't control their sphincter. This has nothing to do with courage. The absolutely crushing and superior aura made his body tremble instinctively. The companion was silent for a long time and said uncertainly, "Could it be reinforcements?" Reinforcements? The short-haired young man subconsciously wanted to refute, but suddenly stopped. The demon was indeed dead. The other party didn't hurt them either. Before leaving, he seemed to take the initiative to say hello to them, and his attitude was very friendly. It seemed, maybe, as if reinforcements were actually possible. The two looked at each other. After a while, the short-haired young man shook his head. Forget it. As long as the demon is dead, let's go, and finish it off. His companion didn't think much about it. The two of them walked down together. Demon Slayer Squad. Aoki's figure suddenly appeared. Kagaya heard the sound, picked up the cup, and put it down again. Mr. Aomura? Are you back? Aoki nodded, then realized he couldn't see and said, "The demon has been dealt with." Kagaya sighed. Mr. Aomura's efficiency is really amazing. Amain looked at the cup next to her. In the cup was the tea she poured when Mr. Aomura left, and it was still steaming. Aoki explained, "This demon was relatively weak, and when I arrived, it had already appeared, so I didn't spend any more time looking for it. Only Mr. Aomura can arrive so quickly." Kagaya sighed. Just as Aoki was about to say something, he stopped and turned to look outside. "I'm leaving for a while." As soon as he finished speaking, his figure disappeared from the room. Did someone activate the spatial imprint? Kagaya thought thoughtfully and picked up the cup. At this moment, Aoki's figure appeared again. This demon was stronger than the last one. A full 3 points of experience. Kagaya felt the temperature of the cup in his hand and smiled warmly. == Chapter 102, Mitsuri Kanroji. Layers of clouds obscured the moonlight. In the dark mountain forest, Kanroji Mitsuri ran quickly. As she passed by a rock, she suddenly turned and hid behind it. She folded her arms over her chest and gasped for air. Oops. 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 I met the 12th Kazuki on my 5th mission. Aren't I too unlucky? Her breathing gradually steadied as Mitsuri stuck out her head and quietly looked behind her. Did I lost it? Her face relaxed a little, but then her expression changed, and she rushed forward without hesitation. Boom! A tall demon fell from the sky, more than 3 meters tall, like an iron tower. It hit the ground heavily, causing dead branches and leaves to fly. So dangerous. So dangerous. So dangerous. I almost died. Mitsuri screamed, but she rushed toward the tall demon with a whoosh. The breath of love, second form, love pangs. The pink blade suddenly came out of its sheath and slashed at the tall demon's neck with precision. At that moment, the skin on the tall demon's neck suddenly turned golden. Clang! The pink blade struck, making a crisp metallic sound. Wow wow wow! It's happening again. I can't even cut him. With a cry in her heart, Mitsuri kicked the tall demon hard, using the reverse thrust to distance herself. It's not that her strength was insufficient. Ever since she changed her breathing and created the breath of love, she always felt that the current Nichiren sword was uncomfortable to use. Hey, stop struggling. Low-level beings like you should just be eaten by us. The tall demon raised its head, revealing a ferocious face that looked like a chimpanzee, with the word, lower rank, engraved in its blue pupils. No. I don't want to be eaten. Mitsuri took out a palm-sized wooden token from her arms, one side of which was printed with a complex silver diamond pattern. This was given to her not long ago, with instructions that if she encountered a demon, she should break the token and someone would come to help. This time she encountered the 6th lower rank and wanted to see if she could win on her own. Now it seemed that it still wasn't enough. With the right sword, it might be possible. Be obedient and be eaten by me. The chimpanzee demon rushed toward Mitsuri. I said, no. Mitsuri grabbed the wooden token with one hand and exerted force. Crack! A figure suddenly appeared. The chimpanzee demon's footsteps stopped abruptly. The loose demon slayer uniform couldn't hide her plump figure, and her unique cherry-colored long hair was braided into huge braids. Aoki asked in surprise, Miss Kenroji? Mr. Aomura? Mitsuri was confused and surprised at the same time. Let's talk later. Aoki smiled and turned to look at the demon. Mitsuri temporarily set aside her joy of reunion and said quickly, Mr. Aomura, that's a demon, and it's one of the 12 Kazuki. It's the 6th lower rank again. Aoki looked at the chimpanzee-like demon opposite him and almost laughed out loud. Is this the first 6th lower rank he has encountered? The title seemed destined to offend him, right? The chimpanzee demon roared, Who are you? Why are you here? This prey is mine. Don't worry, I won't compete with you for prey, Aoki said. The chimpanzee demon stared at Aoki's face for 2 seconds, then his expression changed drastically. Without any hesitation, he turned around and ran away. Why? Kenroji Mitsuri blinked. What is he doing? It looks like he's trying to escape, Aoki said. Traitor, it turned out to be a traitor. The chimpanzee demon's eyes were full of horror. He only learned this name after he became one of the 12 Kazuki. Lower rank 6, 5, and upper rank 5, 3, 2, even ordinary demons couldn't count them. After all these achievements, he sounded timid. Suddenly, 2 figures appeared in his path. The chimpanzee demon's footsteps stopped abruptly. You, don't bully others too much. I am one of the 12 Kazuki. Mitsuri's expression was still a little dazed, and this 6th lower rank seemed to be very scared. Is he afraid of Mr. Aomura? 12 Kazuki? That name doesn't scare me, Aoki said, suddenly appearing in front of the chimpanzee demon with his palm raised high. Ah! The chimpanzee demon roared angrily, and suddenly his body turned golden, like a golden tower. You could tell at a glance that its defense was extraordinary. He made fists with both hands and swung them at Aoki like sledgehammers. This blood demon art is interesting, Aoki remarked as he sped up his palm movement slightly. Thud. The chimpanzee demon's arm was broken into 3 sections. Aoki jumped up slightly and raised his palm again. Boom. The chimpanzee demon's head exploded like a watermelon, the golden color on its skin faded, and its body fell heavily, creating a cloud of smoke and dust. Mitsuri opened her mouth slightly, her face full of shock. What happened? The sixth lower rank's head was smashed with one slap from Mr. Aomura. That's one of the 12 Kazuki. Aoki reached out and grabbed the chimpanzee demon's shoulder, letting him struggle. Devour. An invisible vortex formed. The tall body of the chimpanzee demon twisted and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Skill point +1. Kill the lower 6 and gain 35 experience points. Hearing the system prompt, Aoki immediately opened the system panel. 35 experience points? It actually reached double digits, worthy of being the 6th lower rank. However, what he cared more about was that he also gained 1 skill point. Together with the 4 skill points left before, he could learn the level 2 transparent world. Level 1 transparent world could only be used for a short time and was very mentally exhausting. If nothing unexpected happened, level 2 should be close to or even reach the level of Tsujikuni Yorichi, maintaining it for a long time, which would significantly improve his combat power. However, he had another choice: save another skill point and learn level 6 demon blood. Aoki made the choice without hesitation. Level 6 demon blood. It must be level 6 demon blood. That is a chance for him to overcome the sun, which is more important than anything else. After taking another look at the data, Aoki closed the system and found a huge face in front of him. Mr. Aomura, it's really you. I didn't expect to meet you here. Mitsuri blinked her big emerald green eyes, her face rosy and excited. Aoki smiled. I was surprised too. Not only did he not expect that it was Mitsuri who activated the space mark this time, but he also didn't expect that she had already joined the Demon Slayer Corps. According to the original story, Mitsuri Kanroji would join the Demon Slayer Corps by chance after her blind date failed next year. And now, she was already on a mission. She must have learned the breathing technique and passed the final selection. She had been in the Demon Slayer Corps for quite some time. Chapter 103, Kanroji Mitsuri's Reaction. On the first day after Mr. Aomura left, Shinobu arrived at Azabu to investigate the demon problem. Shinobu is a member of the Demon Slayer Corps, 1 year younger than me, but very powerful. Through her introduction, I also joined the Demon Slayer Corps, learned breathing techniques from Mr. Rengoku, and finally passed the final selection. Mitsuri pulled Aoki and chattered about her experiences. Aoki listened quietly and chimed in from time to time. Mr. Aomura, what about you? Mitsuri suddenly asked. Me? Aoki said, as I said at the beginning, I basically wander around killing demons. It turns out that Mr. Aomura is also killing demons. Shinobu said that Mr. Aomura was not a member of the Demon Slayer Corps. As Mitsuri spoke, her voice gradually became softer, and her face turned serious. Have you finally discovered it? Aoki said nothing and looked at her quietly. Ah. Mitsuri suddenly jumped up. Mr. Aomura, why did you become a demon? Aoki smiled. It's not that I turned into a demon. I was originally a demon, at least when we first met. Mitsuri was stunned for a moment, and then suddenly realized. No wonder Mr. Aomura gave her a strange feeling when they first met. At that time, she didn't know where the strange feeling came from. Now she finally understood. Miss Kanroji, actually Aoki was ready to reveal his identity. When they parted, he thought about whether they would become enemies if they met again. However, after he reached a cooperation with the Demon Slayer Corps, this worry no longer existed. He had no intention of testing human nature, nor did he want to embarrass Mitsuri. However, Mitsuri didn't hear his words at all and turned around anxiously. What to do? What to do? What to do? She scratched her beautiful hair. Mr. Aomura, how about we run away? Aoki was stunned. Run away? Where to go? Anywhere is fine. It's best to leave Tokyo and leave this country. Mitsuri sounded anxious. I heard that the world is very big, and the country we are in is just an insignificant corner of this world. As long as you escape from here, you don't have to worry about being chased by the demon slayers. A smile appeared on Aoki's face. I'm a demon, aren't you going to kill me? Mitsuri asked, have you ever eaten anyone? No. Then have you ever killed innocent people? I have killed many people, but none of them were innocent. Then why should I kill Mr. Aomura? Mitsuri's expression and tone were very serious. Aoki smiled and said, I said it, do you believe it? Mitsuri said, Mr. Aomura has saved so many girls. Although he has the aura of demons, he doesn't have the smell of decay. Moreover, he is also very handsome. I believe Mr. Aomura is not a bad person. It's okay not to mention the last reason. Aoki laughed and shook his head, opening his arms. However, thank you, Miss Kanroji, for your trust. Look at me again. Mitsuri was a little confused, but soon her eyes widened. Team uniform? Mr. Aomura, why are you wearing the Demon Slayer uniform too? Aoki explained, actually, I have reached a cooperation with the Demon Slayer Corps. Do you remember that wooden token? Wooden token? Kanroji Mitsuri quickly remembered. The one I broke? Aoki nodded. That's what I made. It turns out Mr. Aomura is the helper. Mitsuri completely understood, and at the same time, she breathed a sigh of relief, her eyes shining slightly. Great, this way we don't have to run away. Well, I thought we would be chased by the demon slayers. Aoki thought for a while and asked, Miss Kanroji, what happened to Azabu after I left? How is the Aoki dojo? How did things develop? He never returned to Azabu, but he never forgot the situation there. Mitsuri was quite familiar with her hometown, including the situation at Aoki dojo. Because Mr. Aomura destroyed the demon, Miss Mizuno Teiko returned to Aoki dojo safely. Later, many policemen came to Aoki dojo to inquire about Mr. Aomura. The business of the dojo was affected to a certain extent, but it soon recovered. About 2 months later, Mr. Keisuke and Ms. Teiko got married. They are already married Aoki's side. The birth and perfection of Aoki Ryu is due to Keisuke. However, the late arrival of the martial artist career may also be due to Keisuke. But forget it, the martial artist level is now maxed out anyway. As for Yeheim society, Mitsuri continued, the incident at Yoshiya Yeheim exposed the next day, causing a huge sensation and everyone was filled with indignation. That day, the Yeheim society was sealed off, and 3 days later, all the main members of the Fujita family were arrested and imprisoned. Soon, Fujita Steel collapsed, and a large number of high-ranking government officials were sentenced. They deserve it, Aoki said. Mitsuri whispered, actually, it is because Mr. Mizuno Kengo and all the victims and their families united to put pressure, otherwise, those high-ranking officials may not have been punished. And it is said that even so, some high-ranking prisoners were not affected. Not surprising, Aoki said calmly. There are so many bad things in this world, he has no ability and energy to care. Mitsuri Kanroji pouted. Mr. Aomura saved people, good. They protected criminals, bad. Aoki laughed and stood up. It's almost time to go. By the way, Miss Kanroji, do you want to go to the Butterfly Mansion and meet Shinobu Kocho? The Butterfly Mansion? Oh, I know, that is the medical institution opened by Shinobu and her sister, Miss Kane. Mitsuri Kanroji tilted her head. Mr. Aomura also knows Shinobu? In fact, my first contact with the Demon Slayer Corps was because of Kane Kocho and Shinobu Kocho. Aoki briefly talked about how he met the Butterfly Sisters and the subsequent development. Okay. Then I'm going. Mitsuri said happily. After joining the Demon Slayer Corps, I haven't seen Shinobu yet. Aoki grabbed her arm and said, let's go back to the headquarters first and tell the head of the Ubuyashiki family, and then go to the Butterfly Mansion. Mitsuri Kanroji's eyes widened slightly. Eh? Wait a minute, the head of the Ubuyashiki family, isn't that? Before she finished her words, the two of them suddenly disappeared. Back at the Demon Slayer Corps headquarters, Aoki greeted Ubuyashiki Kagaya, and then took Mitsuri to the Butterfly Mansion. Chapter 104, Revisiting the Old Place. What? The five Hashira joined forces and ended up in a miserable defeat? Under the siege of Muzan Kabutsuji and many Upper Moons, he killed Upper Moon 3 and 6. So far, 5 Upper Moons have been defeated? Mitsuri's shouting continued to echo. Aoki glanced at her and then turned his gaze back to Kaneo, who was practicing swordsmanship. Kaneo was making rapid progress. Although her emotions were suppressed and she lost the ability to think for herself, she did not become stupid, and her talent was outstanding. In a few months, Kaneo should be able to fully master the breathing technique. With her special eyes, it should be easy for her to pass the final selection. The hand demon had been eliminated by him, and there were no uncontrollable factors in Mount Fuji now. However, is it really necessary for Kaneo to continue learning the breathing technique? If it is to gain power and become stronger, there is no problem. But if it is just to kill demons, there is no need at all. It will take several years for Kaneo to grow up. He does not intend to let Muzan live that long. Watching Kaneo's beautiful movements, Aoki suddenly asked, "Kaneo, besides practicing, is there anything else you want to do?" "Other things I want to do?" Kaneo stopped practicing, looking confused. "Yes, anything is fine." Aoki looked at her with encouragement. Kaneo looked more and more confused, and her body gradually began to tremble, with a painful expression on her face. "Okay." Aoki shouted, "We will discuss this issue later. Heart issues are difficult to cure. It seems that now is not the time." After a while, Shinobu and Mitsuri walked out of the room. "Mr. Aomura, you are so powerful now." Mitsuri's face flushed. "My strength has indeed improved a little these days." Aoki asked, "Miss Kanroji, do you want to go back to Azabu to take a look?" Mitsuri thought of how they arrived at the Demon Slayer Corps headquarters from the Far East in an instant, then came to the Butterfly Mansion in an instant, and her eyes were slightly excited. "Can I?" Aoki nodded, "That's right. I want to go and take a look too." Shinobu interrupted, "Then I want to go too." "No problem." Aoki turned his head and looked at Kaneo, who was standing silently beside him. "Kaneo, come with us too." Kaneo opened her eyes wide and nodded gently. "Okay. Can I go too?" A gentle voice sounded, and Kane walked in. "Let's all go together." Aoki waved his hand. Although the consumption would increase exponentially with each additional person, he still had the strength to take 4 people back and forth. "Hold on tightly, I'm not responsible if you get left behind," Aoki said. Mitsuri and Shinobu grabbed his right arm, while Kane Kocho and Kaneo grabbed his left hand. There are 2 basic conditions for a space shuttle. One is that you cannot resist, and the other is that your body must be in direct contact with him. After making sure the 4 people were holding on well, Aoki directly launched the space shuttle. In an instant, the world changed. Shinobu looked at the trees around her, bewildered. "What is this place? Aren't we going to Kanroji's house?" Mitsuri looked around, her eyes lit up, and she became excited. "It's here." The Butterfly sisters all looked at her. "This is where I met Mr. Aomura." Kanroji Mitsuri pointed to the gravel on the ground and explained excitedly, "At that time, I accidentally approached this jungle and heard a strange sound coming from inside. I came in and found Mr. Aomura practicing martial arts with stones." "So this is the scene when you first met," Shinobu said. Mitsuri shook her head, "No, that was the 3rd time I met Mr. Aomura. I had met him twice before and said hello, but I didn't know him well." Everyone walked out together. Aoki explained, "We chose this place because it is hidden enough, and I am familiar with the environment. If the space mark is left in the city, it may be discovered and destroyed. If we suddenly appear in public, it will have a bad impact." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone walked out of the jungle and looked ahead. A prosperous city appeared in their sight. The lights were on, and they illuminated the entire city. People came and went, and vendors kept shouting, Azabu, when Aoki made the space mark, looked at it from a distance, but did not go in. Although the distance was not too close, all 5 people were not ordinary. The only one with poor physical strength was Kaneo. With Kane's support, they quickly arrived in the city. Mitsuri excitedly introduced everyone to her favorite soba noodle shop, her father's favorite izakaya, her mother's favorite clothing store, and so on. Aoki listened silently. He was also very familiar with this city. In order to find the demons hiding in the city, he had almost searched it thoroughly, but he didn't expect that it was a man-made disaster in the end. Half a year later, the city was almost the same as when he left. Suddenly, 2 familiar figures appeared in his vision, and Aoki stopped. It was a young man with a simple and honest look, holding hands with a pretty girl. The girl's belly was bulging, and she had a happy smile on her face. The 4 girls, including Kane, also stopped. Mitsuri pointed, "That's the Aoki dojo, where Mr. Aomura studied." Kane asked curiously, "Does Mr. Aomura still need to learn ordinary martial arts?" Aoki said, "I wasn't born to fight, so of course I needed to learn. I had just become a demon not long ago, and my strength increased significantly in a short period of time, but I didn't know how to use it at all. Then I met Keisuke, by coincidence, and joined the Aoki dojo." Mitsuri said enthusiastically, "Those 2 are Mr. Keisuke Akiyama and his wife, Miss Teiko Mizuno." Miss Mizuno was one of the victims of the Ahime Society. She regained her freedom after Mr. Aomura destroyed the Ahime Society. Kane's eyes softened, Shinobu gave Aoki a thumbs up, and Kaneo stared at Keisuke and Mizuno, not knowing what she was thinking. Mitsuri asked, "Mr. Aomura, do you want to go over and say hello?" Aoki retracted his gaze from Keisuke and Mizuno, shook his head, and said, "Forget it. He is still an absolutely dangerous person now, so it is better not to contact ordinary people as much as possible." Next, he also rejected the invitation to visit Mitsuri's house. He was worried about the safety of Takaina and Lady Ri, so he kept a distance from them and naturally would not go to other people's homes casually and bring danger to their families. Chapter 105, Encounter with Hantengo. Kane, Shinobu, Kaneo, and Mitsuri went home to visit their families. After arranging to meet them in the jungle later, Aoki wandered around the streets alone. Familiar streets, familiar shops, and even familiar people. Unconsciously, he found himself at the location of the Yeheim Society. However, the once luxurious building was now gone, leaving only an empty lot. Has it been demolished? Aoki muttered to himself. Mitsuri had not mentioned this, so it must have happened after she left. An old man passing by interrupted, "Young man, are you talking about the Yeheim Society?" Aoki nodded, "Yes, I remember it was still here when I came last year." The old man looked disgusted. That Yeheim Society was not a good thing. On the surface, it was an art club, but it was actually a den of abuse built by the Fujita family, which killed countless girls. It was dirtier than my toilet. What an apt analogy. Aoki praised inwardly and asked, "What happened next? Why was the Yeheim Society demolished?" More than half a year ago, the Yeheim Society was destroyed and the Fujita family was ruined. However, those crimes were not the main reason for the demolition. The old man said mysteriously, "It is said that the Yeheim Society was destroyed by a person. That person was a messenger sent by God. The Yeheim Society was hated by the gods. No one wanted to take over, so it had to be demolished in the end." God's messenger? Aoki's expression was subtle. Given the situation with Muzan, even if there are gods, demons are probably despised by them. The old man changed the subject and said with a smile, "By the way, young man, how old are you this year? Are you married? I have a granddaughter who is 28 years old. Her beauty is well known in all of Azabu. She is currently looking for a suitable marriage. I think you have a good appearance and temperament. Do you want to meet my granddaughter?" Aoki, ? Good grief. You're here, for a blind date. However, looking at your appearance, it's hard to believe you have a granddaughter as beautiful as a fairy. Sorry, uncle, I already have a fiancé. Aoki said perfunctorily and left in a hurry. When facing the siege of Muzan and the upper moons, the pressure was not this great. Where to go next? Should I go to the Fujita family? Aoki was pondering when a figure appeared in his vision. It was a hunched old man, walking slowly against the wall. There was a huge tumor on his forehead. His face was aged, his posture cautious, and his body trembling. At first glance, this was a weak and inconspicuous ordinary old man. Hantengu? Aoki almost blurted out. This image was too familiar. Moreover, the breath of this hunched old man seemed weak, but in reality, it was complex, elusive, and very strange. He happened to run into one of the only two remaining upper moons by chance. This was definitely the best luck in his demon hunting career. Hantengu was keenly aware of two different gazes. He turned his head and shuddered. Defector? Bang! Without any hesitation, his body broke apart. This was not suicide. Hantengu's broken body quickly regenerated into 4 younger demons who looked very similar but had completely different temperaments. In their eyes, the words upper moon and 4 were engraved. In fact, the 4 words joy, anger, sorrow, and pleasure were engraved on the tongues hidden in their mouths. Huh, you want to escape? Aoki had already opened the transparent world and clearly captured all the changes in Hantengu's body. His figure flashed and appeared in front of a piece of Hantengu's exploded flesh, suddenly reaching out to grab it. The rotten flesh suddenly turned into an old man the size of a mouse, very similar to Hantengu before the split. Hantengu's blood demon art is complex and powerful. Including the main body, he has a total of 8 bodies. Usually, he is a timid old man with a tumor on his head and no words in his eyes. After splitting, he can transform into 5 demons, 4 demons of joy, anger, sorrow, and pleasure, and the true body, a timid demon with a body like a mouse. The timid demon can mimic and transform into a tall and strong hate demon. After the angry demon devours the joyful, sorrowful, and pleasurable demons, he can transform into the most powerful hateful demon. Hantengu's different clones can also use various types of attacks such as lightning and sound waves. In terms of the richness of blood demon art functions, Hantengu is definitely one of the best. However, among the upper moons, his weaknesses are also the most obvious. His clones are not afraid of beheading and have rich abilities that can cope with various environments, but the original body, the timid demon, has no combat ability. Jotaro has weak hard power and the burden of daki. They practice both combat methods, but neither is proficient enough. Hantengu has rich abilities but has a huge weakness in the original body. Although they are all upper moons, there is still a relatively obvious gap between the lower 3 and the upper 3 among them. Ah! Hantengu let out a cry of shock and anger as his body was caught in Aoki's hand. His body swelled and turned into a tall hate demon. He clenched his fists and smashed toward Aoki. Aoki's face was calm as he swept his arm. Puff! The upper body of the hate demon was torn off directly. Although powerful, how could he compare with Aoki at this moment? The 4 demons of joy, anger, sorrow, and pleasure also changed their faces. They didn't understand why the defector locked onto the main body so quickly. The last time they fought, they appeared directly in the form of hateful amber. Logically, the secret should not be exposed. The angry demon did not hesitate and immediately began to devour the other 3 demons to transform into hateful amber. Only hateful amber could possibly fight against the defector. Aoki didn't even look at them and pulled his arm back. Puff! The remaining half of the hate demon's chest was torn open directly, and an old man the size of a palm was forcibly pulled out by him. I caught you. Let me go. Let me go. The timid demon screamed, why do you bully me? I am so pitiful, and you still want to hurt me. Do you have a conscience? Don't you feel guilty? Guilty? Aoki showed a faint mockery on his face. Hantengu stole, robbed, and killed people when he was alive. He did all kinds of evil and pretended to be a victim. After becoming a demon, there was still no change. Everything was always someone else's fault. He would always be a victim. The personalities of the upper moons are more twisted than the others, with the most serious ones being Doma, upper moon 2, Gyako, upper moon 5, and Hantengu, upper moon 4. Whether the other three are good or bad is not mentioned, but at least they were normal people before they became demons. These three were mentally twisted perverts even when they were alive. The angry demon finally swallowed the other three demons and quickly beat the drum behind him. The huge wooden dragon broke out of the ground and bit Aoki. Too late. Aoki ignored it, tightened his palm, and thought, "Devouring demon, devour it for me." No. Hantengu struggled. However, his body was too weak to break free from the shackles of the devouring demon, and his body was devoured bit by bit. The wooden dragon opened its mouth and bit Aoki. But the next moment, it instantly turned into black smoke. Chapter 106, Overcoming the Sunlight, the Ultimate Creature. Intelligence +1. Free skill point +1. Kill upper rank 4 and gain 800 experience points. Congratulations, you have leveled up. Aoki lowered his palm. Among the 6 upper ranks, the battle with Hantengu was the easiest. Easier even than fighting Akaza, who was severely restrained by him. Of course, the reason he could resolve the battle so easily was not only because Hantengu's shortcomings were too obvious, but also because Aoki's strength was now far beyond the level of the upper ranks. In fact, even if Hantengu didn't have such obvious weaknesses, it wouldn't have been difficult for Aoki to kill him. Now, the biggest challenge in defeating the upper ranks was finding them. This time, it was simply a matter of luck. Walking on the road, in a vast sea of people, he had run into Hantengu unexpectedly. Only Kokushibo is left. Aoki looked up. There was no one around, the nearest people were more than 10 meters away. Many people in the buildings on both sides poked their heads out, looking at him blankly, in fear, or curiously. Aoki didn't like being watched like a monkey. His figure flashed, and he disappeared. After several consecutive space shuttles, he left the city and came to a low mountain outside. After entering October, the summer heat gradually dissipated, and the temperature became lower and lower. There was no shelter on the mountaintop. A gust of wind blew, as if it had entered winter directly. However, Aoki didn't feel cold at all, his heart was even hotter. His mind moved, and the azure blue screen appeared in his vision. Level 19, only one step away from the maximum level. The most important thing was that the number of free skill points had reached 7. Aoki first added 2 free attribute points to physique and agility, then looked at the skill bar impatiently. The system prompts that both Demon Blood and Transparent World could be improved. Demon Blood. Learn level 6 Demon Blood. Even hesitating for a second would be disrespectful to the sun. All attributes +1. Aoki's thoughts fell, and a strong momentum suddenly burst out from his body. But he didn't care at all, he closed his eyes and felt it silently. An inexplicable change was happening in his body. All the cells in his body were transforming. This change was not drastic, but the impact was extremely profound. The whole person seemed to be evolving into another creature. After a long time, Aoki opened his eyes, lay back, spread his arms, and stared blankly at the sky. There was no sun at this time, but he was very sure that he had overcome the sun. The fear and disgust of the sun ingrained in his bones quietly dissipated at some point. A strong sense of satisfaction and security filled his heart, as if after a day of hard work, he soaked his body in a hot spring, and his body and soul were warm. From now on, there will be no flaws. Aoki smiled and silently felt his other gains. Basic attributes such as recovery speed and physical strength had reached unprecedented heights. These were invisible changes, but there were also visible ones. Name, Aoki. Strength, 24. Constitution, 24. Intelligence, 25. Agility, 24. Occupation, hunter, White Walker, martial artist. White Walker. Quality. Level, LV19, 516/1900. Skills, Demon Blood 6, Space Shuttle 2, Transparent World, Demon Devourer 2. Quest, none. Free skill points, 1. Aoki's heart was in turmoil. After becoming a demon and awakening the White Walker profession, he had another dream, to devour Muzan Kibutsuji. Now, he had the ability to fulfill this dream. Aoki looked dazed, and a familiar scene appeared in front of him again. The master who went down the mountain to buy supplies and took the bow suddenly appeared at the door, holding a human thigh in his hand, with a ferocious expression and cold eyes, not like a human. After that day, the happy and peaceful days were suddenly shattered. Aoki looked at the system panel with a dim gaze. I still need more than 1,300 experience points to reach the maximum level. However, even if he reached the maximum level, it would only add 2 attribute points, which would improve his strength to a certain extent but would not bring a qualitative change. His eyes turned to the skill bar again. What could bring a greater improvement to his strength was the level 2 Transparent World. Especially against Muzan Kibutsuji, Transparent World was very important. In fact, Muzan Kibutsuji did not have much combat experience. After all, there had never been an opponent in this world that required him to go all out. Facing Tsujikuni Yorichi, it was also unnecessary, because he had no chance to attack at all, and he would die if he ran a little later. However, Muzan Kibutsuji had lived for thousands of years. In 1,000 years, even a pig could become a combat master. Muzan Kibutsuji's combat skills were definitely not bad. Moreover, his basic attributes and abilities were extremely powerful. There were nearly 20 whips on his body, and the attacks were complex and changeable. In dealing with such extremely complex moves, Transparent World could provide great help. The duration of Level 1 Transparent World was limited. If the battle dragged on for a little longer, there would be the embarrassment of running out of time. 4 skill points are missing, Aoki said silently. After learning Level 6 Demon Blood, he still had 1 free skill point left. Level 2 Transparent World required a total of 5 skill points. There was only one chance. With Muzan Kibutsuji's personality, if he couldn't be killed in one go, there wouldn't be another chance for a long time. The world was so big, if Muzan Kibutsuji really wanted to hide, no one could find him. Before taking action, he must try his best to strengthen his strength and find every means to increase the success rate. 2 attributes could not be given up, and Level 2 Transparent World must also be obtained. If he wanted to quickly reach the maximum level, the best way was to find Kokushibo. Hantengu, the 4th of the upper ranks, had given him 800 experience points. Even if promoted to the next level, Kokushibo's experience must exceed 1,000 points. However, it was not enough to just reach the maximum level. If he upgraded to the next level, he would only get 1 free skill point, leaving him 3 points short. The action of killing demons could not stop. First, it could make up for the gap if Kokushibo's experience was not enough to upgrade. Second, it could collect free skill points. It seems Muzan Kibutsuji will have to live a little longer, but there are some things that can be tried. Aoki lay silently on the rock on the mountaintop, looking up at the sky, with a brightly lit city below him. Time passed, and the stars moved. The city gradually went from bustling to quiet, and the night became darker and darker. The whole world seemed to be swallowed by darkness. Suddenly, a ray of golden sunlight appeared and pierced the darkness. The sun rose slowly, and the dazzling sunlight spread all over the world. The darkness quickly dissipated like ice and snow under the sun. Aoki did not wear a sunshade hat, nor did he hide in the shadows. He lay on the rock on the mountaintop without any shelter above his head. The bright and warm sunlight enveloped his body, but did not cause any harm. Feeling the warm sensation coming from his limbs, Aoki couldn't help but smile. Chapter 107, Prelude. Mitsuri reluctantly said goodbye to her family, her mood rarely falling into depression. She liked the life of the Demon Slayer Corps. Using her own strength to help others gave her a sense of purpose. However, parting with her family still made her very sad. Kane and Shinobu also felt some emotional ups and downs. Mitsuri's happy family reminded them of their own. Their family was once so happy. Everything was destroyed because of demons. At the same time, they admired this girl who looked soft and weak even more. Many joined the Demon Slayer Corps out of pain and hatred, but few, with happy and complete families, still choose to risk their lives fighting demons. Each one is particularly admirable. Kaneo was silent as always, following the three like a little tail. For a while, none of the four spoke. Until a strange message reached their ears. Shattered bodies, strange wooden dragons. From a few words, they realized the problem. After careful questioning, they found that most people heard it from hearsay, and no one could explain what had happened specifically. But they were basically sure it was related to demons. This time, a demon really appeared, Mitsuri said seriously. Her parents, relatives, and friends all lived here. Shinobu asked, "Sister, what should we do now?" Kane thought for a while. Could the wooden dragon be the upper rank 4? She remembered that Mr. Aomura said one of the upper rank 4's clones had the ability to control the wooden dragon. The demon's blood arts were almost the same. However, she was not very sure without seeing it with her own eyes. The upper rank 4? Mitsuri puffed up her face. Upper rank demons are much more dangerous than ordinary demons. Such a terrible demon actually appeared where she lived. Shinobu thought, I remember the one who can control the wooden dragon. Is Zohakuten the most powerful clone of the upper 4? Who is he fighting? The three looked at each other, and a name came to their minds. Let's go and meet Mr. Aomura first. Kane decided. The other three had no objections. The four quickened their pace and left quickly, soon arriving at the agreed place. They saw from a distance someone practicing boxing under the shade of a tree. Mr. Aomura is here. Kane was about to go over, but suddenly froze and her steps became slower and slower. Shinobu and Mitsuri had similar reactions. Tall trees pierced the sky, and the huge treetops formed a shadow that separated them. Aoki was in the shadow, and Kane and the other three stood in the sun, with doubts and confusion on their faces. Aoki had heard the movement and stopped what he was doing. You're back. The few people still did not react. Aoki was surprised and asked, what's wrong? Kane thought for a moment and said, it seems that something has changed in Mr. Aomura, and he is very different from before. Mitsuri nodded repeatedly and added in her heart, he seems to be more handsome than before. Shinobu recalled, it seems that similar changes have occurred before, but not as strong as now. Maybe it's because of this. Aoki understood, walked forward a few steps, let the sun cover him, and looked at them with a smile. They were a little confused at first, but soon their eyes widened one after another. Kane's beautiful face was full of shock. Mr. Aomura, have you overcome the sun? Yes. Aoki sighed, after being a demon for so long, I can finally stand in the sun again. Kane, Shinobu, and Mitsuri were all dizzy. A demon who was not afraid of the sun had finally been born in the world. Fortunately, this demon is not an enemy. If it was Muzan Kabutsuji, then the world would be forever in pain and darkness. Aoki asked, you seem in a hurry. What happened? The group came back to their senses and finally remembered their purpose. Kane said, Mr. Aomura, we found traces of Hantengu, the upper 4th, in our city. Moreover, he seemed to have fought with someone last night. Aoki did not hide it, you got the news quickly. Don't worry. I was fighting Hantengu last night. That Hantengu? Shinobu showed an expectant expression. Aoki said, of course, he is dead. Although she had guessed the answer, Shinobu still couldn't help but feel excited. In this way, there is only one upper moon left. Mitsuri was a little curious, Mr. Aomura, how did you find Hantengu? Aoki shook his head, I didn't look for him. I just ran into him on the road. Ah? Mitsuri was confused and amused. The upper fourth is too unlucky. In the whole world, there is only one person who can easily kill him, and he just happened to run into him. Maybe this is his fate, Aoki said. Kane took a deep breath, looked at Aoki with burning eyes, and said word by word, Mr. Aomura, how is your strength now compared to Muzan Kabutsuji? Shinobu was refreshed and stared at Aoki. She was also very curious about this question. Overcoming the sunlight was something Muzan Kabutsuji had not done. Does this mean that Mr. Aomura has surpassed Muzan Kabutsuji? In their expectant eyes, Aoki pondered for a while and said, at the very least, I am not weaker than Muzan Kabutsuji. Kane and Shinobu Kocho's eyes suddenly became very bright. Mitsuri Kenroji's face flushed and she was also very excited. Shinobu's voice trembled a little, Mr. Aomura, can we? Aoki raised his hand, it's not that simple. Shinobu was stunned, took a deep breath, and gradually calmed down. Indeed, Muzan Kabutsuji is not easy to kill. The Demon Slayer Corps and Muzan Kabutsuji have been entangled for thousands of years, and they have the most profound feelings about this. Let alone other things, finding Muzan Kabutsuji is a huge problem. For so many years, let alone grasping Muzan Kabutsuji's whereabouts, they know almost nothing about Muzan Kabutsuji, including his appearance, abilities, etc. Maybe there was once. But the Demon Slayer Corps almost collapsed several times, and a lot of information was lost. Now their understanding of Muzan Kabutsuji basically comes from Mr. Aomura. Aoki said, but don't be discouraged. I have a plan. When I go back, I plan to discuss it with the head of the Ubuyashiki family. Chapter 108, Hunting Without Misery. Under the moonlight, Kokushibo looked at the shimmering water, which reflected his face with 6 eyes. Hantengu is dead too. He was a little confused about how things were going. In the past 100 years, no upper rank had been killed, but now, in less than a year, all the upper ranks except him were dead, including an additional one. This was the biggest crisis they had encountered since the death of his brother. Is it my turn next? Kokushibo gently touched the sword on his waist, and the heart that had been calm for hundreds of years rippled with unease. He had to admit he was indeed at risk of death. When the defector killed Doma, his strength was close to Kokushibo's. Later, he devoured several upper ranks, and now his strength was certainly not weaker than Kokushibo's. What's more troubling is that the defector's attacks come with a special power that injures the demon's body and disrupts its regeneration ability. But they can't do anything about the defector. This is completely the opposite of the situation when they face humans, or even worse. At least they were afraid of being beheaded, but for them, defector had almost no weaknesses. Moreover, defector had special abilities, and they couldn't escape from them even if they wanted to. Kokushibo's hand gradually tightened. Seeking protection from other demons? The only person in the world stronger than him was that man. But how could that man be his bodyguard? Anxiety kept pouring out from the bottom of my heart. Because my life was threatened, my body was slightly numb. This feeling was both familiar and strange, annoying and nostalgic. Kokushibo stared at himself in the water for a few seconds, turned around, and slowly left. Yuzui Tenjin came to the door of the Demon Slayer Corps headquarters, and was about to go in, but saw Sanemi approaching from another direction, so he stopped and waited. Sanemi, do you know why the master called us here this time? Sanemi shook his head. I don't know, but the master summoning all the pillars against the norm must mean it's something very important. The two went in together. Familiar courtyard, familiar scenery. Yuzui Tenjin glanced around. Most of the people had arrived. Iguro was lying on a tree, and Tomioka was still expressionless, standing alone at a distance from the others. The others looked no different from before. However, he keenly felt that the atmosphere in the yard was a little strange. What's going on? Yuzui Tengin's eyes continued to turn. In addition to the pillars, there was another person in the yard, with black hair and golden eyes, tall and heroic, who was talking to Kane. It was normal for Aomura to be here. As far as he knew, Aomura had been living in the master's house during this period. Aoki felt a gaze lingering on him for a long time. He turned his head and found that it was Yuzui Tengen, who nodded to him. Tengen waved in response. Aomura, I heard that you defeated another upper rank. It's really impressive, eh? His voice stopped abruptly. Something is wrong. He took another look. Yuzui Tengen blinked hard. In the bright sunshine, Aomura and Kocho Kane stood side by side. Their auras were obscure, but occasionally a bit of it would make one's scalp tingle. Sunlight, Aomura, Aomura, sunlight. Yuzui Tengen quickly caught the key words in his mind, and his eyes gradually widened. Aomura, you. Yes, as you can see, I have overcome the sunlight. Aoki answered skillfully. He had repeated this sentence several times. Sanemi realized this earlier than Tengen, and his face had returned to calm. The appearance of a demon who overcomes the sunlight is indeed beyond his expectations. Fortunately, this demon is Aomura. If it were any other demon, it would be a complete disaster for the Demon Slayer Corps. This matter is unbelievable at first glance, but if you think about it carefully, it feels unexpectedly reasonable. Aomura has always been completely different from the demons he knows, and there are too many special things about him. Overcoming the sunlight is not so strange when it happens to Aomura. The arrival of Tengen and Sanemi marked the arrival of all the pillars. Ubuyashiki Kagaya walked out of the room with two children, smiling and speaking in a gentle voice. Everyone is here. I'm glad to see you again so soon. He was not trying to make a grand entrance, but his physical condition simply could not support being exposed to the wind and sun for long periods. Master. All the pillars knelt on one knee. Ubuyashiki Kagaya sat down and smiled. First of all, I have good news for everyone. The fourth upper rank is dead. Everyone was stunned for a moment, then looked at Aoki in unison. Aoki did not speak, and Kagaya's voice sounded again. Yes, it was Mr. Aomura who killed the fourth upper rank, Hantengu, 2 days ago. All the pillars were convinced. Not only did they admire the strength of Aomura, but also his ability to find the upper ranks. In the past year, among all the pillars combined, only Kane had seen the upper ranks once, and she almost died. Aomura killed them one after another, as if those upper ranks were queuing up for his favor. Yuzui Tengen did a quick calculation in his mind and said in surprise, the fourth upper rank is dead, doesn't that mean there is only one upper rank left? The other pillars also realized this problem, and their eyes were a little complicated. Including the additional one, he has killed 6 upper ranks, which is equivalent to slaughtering all the upper ranks. This record is simply amazing. If he were a formal member of the Demon Slayer Corps, he could definitely compete for the title of the most meritorious member in history. Perhaps only the original breath user who passed down the breath technique could surpass him. At this time, Ubuyashiki Kagaya spoke, attracting everyone's attention again. Calling everyone here today is also related to this matter. The pillars did not interrupt, waiting silently. Ubuyashiki Kagaya turned his face towards Aoki. Mr. Aomura. This was something that had been discussed, and Aoki did not refuse. His figure flashed and appeared next to Ubuyashiki Kagaya. The faces of the pillars were very calm. Now they all trusted Aomura very much, especially after the last round of competition. All the pillars knew that if Aomura had any evil intentions, the Demon Slayer Corps would have been destroyed by now. Aoki swept his eyes over all the pillars. The pillars looked at him with doubt or expectation. No one knew what he was going to say. Even Kocho Kane only knew that he had a plan, but she had no idea what it was. I'm going to start hunting Muzan Kabutsuji, Aoki said. Boom. The courtyard fell into an eerie silence at first, and then exploded. The eyes of all the pillars suddenly became very eager. Chapter 109, Monster Killing Plan. Are you really going to attack Muzan Kabutsuji? When? How exactly is it going to be done? What do we need to do? Do you know where Muzan Kabutsuji is? The pillars asked all kinds of questions. Aoki raised his hand to signal them to be quiet. I am indeed prepared to deal with Muzan Kibutsuji, but I won't do it right away. The pillars stared at him with burning eyes, waiting for his next words. Aoki said, to defeat Muzan Kibutsuji, we must first find him. But he has no fixed address and can change his appearance at will. It's not impossible to find him in the vast sea of people, but it's very difficult. The pillars nodded. This was one of the most challenging parts of dealing with Muzan Kibutsuji. If they could lock onto Muzan's position, even if they knew they were no match, they might still try to strike him. So, we have to lure out Muzan Kibutsuji, Aoki said. Lure him out? How? Sanemi asked impatiently. Aoki replied, just like fishing, you need bait to catch different fish. To attract Muzan Kibutsuji, you need something that interests him. And what is Muzan Kibutsuji interested in? The blue spider lily, Aoki said. The blue spider lily? Everyone looked at each other in confusion. Aoki explained simply, Muzan Kibutsuji longs for immortality. His biggest dream is to conquer the sun, and one way to do that is with the blue spider lily. All the pillars were shocked. This information was crucial, and it was the first time they had heard of it. Another question lingered in their minds. If the blue spider lily was key to overcoming the sun, then was Mr. Aomura. Aoki could probably guess what they were thinking, but he didn't explain. For thousands of years, one of Muzan Kibutsuji's most important tasks has been to find the blue spider lily. The establishment of the 12 Kazuki is closely related to it. If news about the blue spider lily spreads, it will definitely attract Muzan Kibutsuji's attention. Ba. Jiomiai clasped his hands together. Mr. Aomura, do you know the location of the blue spider lily? Aoki glanced at him. It doesn't matter whether I know or not. We just need to make Muzan Kibutsuji believe that there is a blue spider lily at the place we designate. Aoki's plan was simple, put on a big show and create a convincing rumor. The scene must be real enough to make Muzan Kibutsuji unable to see through it. Aoki believed this could be achieved with the power of the Ubuyashiki family and the Demon Slayer Corps. The real challenge was ensuring the rumors reached Muzan Kibutsuji at the right time. This was not the internet age where news could spread globally within a day. It wasn't easy for rumors to reach Muzan's ears. If the time was too long, the message might be distorted and become ridiculous. No matter how perfect the acting was, it wouldn't deceive Muzan. Additionally, Aoki didn't want Muzan to flee immediately. The ideal situation was to escalate the situation step by step. He didn't just want to hunt Muzan Kibutsuji, he wanted to use the blue spider lily to create the perfect trap. The number of demons was limited, and they weren't mindless monsters. After his killing spree during this period, the quantity and quality of demons had dropped significantly. Moreover, the demons had become more cautious, making it much harder to gather information. Instead of tirelessly hunting demons, it was better to lure them in. Of course, the location provided must be fake. Aoki wouldn't risk revealing the real blue spider lily. Although he had overcome the sunlight, the blue spider lily still held value. Mount Kumatori was not suitable for this. The overall plan was simple, but the details were complex. The more complex a plan, the more likely it was to fail. However, even if it failed, it would only fail in the details. The ultimate goal of luring out Muzan Kibutsuji would still succeed. This was almost a sure strategy. Given Muzan's obsession with the blue spider lily, as long as the news was convincing, he wouldn't ignore it. The key lay in the information gap. Muzan didn't know that Aoki's current strength could threaten his life. Muzan was a combination of timidity and arrogance. No matter how many demons died, even if Aoki killed all the demons, Muzan wouldn't take Aoki seriously. However, once he felt a real threat to his life from Aoki, he would run away without hesitation and hide like a rat. What comes next? Yuzui asked. If we can really lure out Muzan Kibutsuji, what should we do then? Aoki said, I will take care of Muzan Kibutsuji. Your role is to assist me from the side. All the pillars were stunned. Although he said it tactfully, they understood, there was no need for them to deal with Muzan Kibutsuji directly. To put it bluntly, they weren't strong enough and could only watch from the sidelines. While this might be difficult to accept, Aoki saw it as the truth. Against Muzan Kibutsuji in his prime, these pillars, without their marks, probably couldn't withstand a single blow. Without the red blade, they couldn't cause any substantial damage to Muzan Kibutsuji. There was no point in them participating in the battle. Kane looked worried. "Mr. Aomura, is it okay to rely on yourself?" Aoki said, "You can watch nearby, and if I can't do it, you can step in." There was no need to explain in detail. When they saw the battle, they would understand everything. This was not a mere formality. If something unexpected happened, they would be the last line of defense. The pillars looked at each other and accepted the proposal. Aoki thought for a while and then said, "You still have a very important task. Muzan Kibutsuji has an ability to split his body into 1,800 pieces, and he can survive as long as one piece escapes. I have made a poison that restrains this ability. However, if the poison fails or its effect is not ideal, you must help me prevent the pieces from escaping." "Muzan Kibutsuji has this ability?" The pillars all looked serious. They realized how difficult it was to kill Muzan Kibutsuji. If it weren't for Mr. Aomura and the information he provided, they wouldn't have seen any chance of success. "Feel free to raise any opinions you have," Aoki said. The entire Demon Slayer Corps would participate in this plan. The reason the pillars were called here today was to gather their ideas and refine the plan. After a moment of silence, the pillars were not shy and started discussing enthusiastically. Chapter 110, Ubuyashiki Kagaya's Expectations. The meeting lasted until evening. After it was over, the pillars left in a hurry. They had to patrol their assigned areas, rescue team members in danger, deal with demons that ordinary team members couldn't handle, and collect intelligence. There was much to do. Although their work had become somewhat easier, thanks to Aoki, they still didn't have time for leisure. At Demon Slayer headquarters, the lights flickered, casting shadows of people. Ubuyashiki Kagaya sat in the living room. Despite a day of meetings, he was in good spirits. "I remember not long ago, I asked Mr. Aomura if he had a plan, and the answer I got was no. I didn't expect he would overcome the sunlight so quickly. I also," Aoki said, without modesty. "First, Yoshiro had a headache and delivered crucial information. Then, with great luck, Aoki encountered Hantengu at just the right time. Without these fortuitous events, he would still be far from accumulating enough skill points to learn level 6 demon blood." Kagaya said with emotion, "When I first received information from Mr. Aomura, I had a hunch he would be the key to defeating Muzan Kibutsuji. But I never thought this day would come so quickly." His condition had become very serious. Even if Muzan Kibutsuji was defeated, Kagaya wouldn't have long to live. However, his children were still young and not yet affected by the curse. By defeating Muzan, his descendants could escape the curse and live in good health. The thought of this future made his body tremble with hope. After thousands of years of waiting, he finally saw hope. It had been too long. Aoki said sincerely, "Without the help of the Ubuyashiki clan and the Demon Slayer Corps, I wouldn't have reached this point so quickly." After level 12, experience gains were greatly reduced. The two biggest contributors to his rapid progress were Ubuyashiki Kagaya and Muzan Kibutsuji. Kagaya did not continue with compliments and said seriously, "I will arrange the trap soon, but it will take some time to meet Mr. Aomura's request." "It's okay, don't worry. It won't take more than a few days. The appearance of the blue spider lily needs to be confirmed by Mr. Aomura himself." "Of course." Kagaya took a breath. "One more thing, Mr. Aomura. Do you want to continue hunting demons?" "Absolutely," Aoki said without hesitation. He had to consider the possibility of the plan failing. It was almost impossible for things to go exactly as planned. Muzan might send others to investigate the blue spider lily instead of coming himself. Continuing to hunt demons and accumulate experience might not be necessary in the end, but it could increase their margin for error. Kagaya was about to say something else when his face suddenly turned red, and he covered his mouth with his palms. Ahem. He coughed violently, and blood appeared on his palms. Ubuyashiki Amane immediately came over with a basin of hot water, followed by their 2 children, each holding a towel and a cup. After a long time, Kagaya calmed down and smiled weakly. Sorry, Mr. Aomura, for making you worry. His face showed great fatigue. He had persisted until now, because of the hope of defeating Muzan and fulfilling his family's 1,000-year dream. After calming down, his body couldn't hold out any longer. Master Ubuyashiki, don't worry, Aoki said. I know an excellent doctor. If you don't mind, I can bring her to see you tomorrow. Kagaya asked, is this Miss Tamayo? That's right. Aoki nodded, not surprised Kagaya had guessed. While most of the Demon Slayer Corps, including the Hashira, knew nothing about Tamayo, Ubuyashiki Kagaya was aware of her existence. Then I'll trouble you, Mr. Aomura, Kagaya said, not refusing. He wasn't afraid of death, but if he could live longer, he wouldn't decline. As for the doctor being a demon, he had already allowed Mr. Aomura to stay in his home, so he didn't care about such a trivial matter. Aoki stood up. Then I'll take my leave. Please take care of your health, Master Ubuyashiki. The day to eliminate Muzan Kibutsuji is approaching. Don't you want to witness it in person? Thank you for your concern, Mr. Aomura. Kagaya's tone remained gentle. I'm inconvenienced, so I'm sorry I can't see you off in person. It doesn't matter. Aoki nodded slightly to Amane and disappeared from the room. Ahem. Kagaya coughed violently again, his palms soon stained with scarlet blood. Amane patted his back gently, her face full of worry. However, Kagaya grabbed her palm, his voice filled with emotion. Amane, I feel it. We're very close to defeating Muzan Kibutsuji. Our generation will surely end this curse that has lasted for thousands of years. Amane nodded slightly. Cooperating with Mr. Aomura was indeed the best choice. After saying goodbye to the Ubuyashiki family, Aoki did not return to his room but space-shuttled to the butterfly estate. As soon as he appeared, a petite figure rushed in front of him. Mr. Aomura, are you really going to attack Muzan Kibutsuji? Shinobu looked at Aoki with burning eyes. Don't worry, we have to wait a while. The preparations haven't even started yet, Aoki said, walking around her and heading inside. Kane and Mitsuri Kanroji were also there. Shinobu Kocho caught up with Aoki, looking worried. Will it succeed? Man proposes, God disposes, Aoki said. All we can do is to continuously increase our chances of victory. I can't guarantee we'll kill Muzan Kibutsuji in the end. Shinobu glared at him. I mean, is the chance high? Aoki smiled. Not bad. Even if the plan to lure Muzan failed completely, as long as Tamayo's poison worked, he was confident that with his current strength, the probability of winning against Muzan Kibutsuji was more than 90%. The remaining 10% was respect for the unexpected. Shinobu held her breath. The demons were too strong. The Demon Slayer Corps fought hard but could barely contend with them. Even the Hashira sacrificed themselves at an alarming rate. A year ago, they were still struggling to survive. Now, they were about to launch an attack against Muzan Kibutsuji. She had a strong sense of unreality. Kane looked at Aoki, her eyes full of gentle smiles. Her heart was also full of emotion. In less than a year, Mr. Aomura had completely changed the situation between humans and demons. Chapter 111, Human Transformation Drug. Swish. Suddenly, Mitsuri stood up, breaking the quiet atmosphere in the room. Mr. Aomura, I'm leaving. Aoki looked at her, leaving? Kanroji Mitsuri smiled brightly, I need to get a new sword, so I have to go to the swordsmith village. I waited until now, because I wanted to say goodbye to you, Mr. Aomura. Swordsmith village? Aoki said without hesitation, be safe. Don't worry, I'll take good care of myself. Hee, when I have my new sword, I might be able to help when we face Muzan Kabutsuji. Mitsuri waved her hand and briskly ran out. Watching her leave, Kane smiled gently. Mitsuri is truly amazing. She left her happy family and relatives to risk her life fighting against demons. Aoki remained silent. The Demon Slayer Corps was made up of idealists. Their main goal in fighting demons wasn't just revenge, it was to protect others from the harm of demons and to prevent more people from enduring their own tragedies. They were people worthy of admiration, not just Kenroji Mitsuri, but also the butterfly sisters beside him. Even the seemingly irritable wind Hashira Sanemi Shinazugawa and the cold and aloof serpent Hashira Iguro Abanai were undeniably good people. Then, Shinobu pulled Aoki aside to ask about the details of the plan. Aoki didn't hold back. Although Shinobu had not yet been named a Hashira, she already had the strength of one. Moreover, as Kocho Kane's sister, she would definitely be a key player in the plan. As night deepened, Aoki stood up, ready to leave. It's getting late. Let's stop here for today. Mr. Aomura, please wait a moment. Is there something else, Miss Kane? Kane took out a small, shuttle-shaped device. Shinobu and I have studied the poison you gave us. The doctor who made it is extremely skilled. The effectiveness of this poison is even better than the one we designed. Aoki took it from her. I also showed your poison to my friend. Your design is quite exquisite. It's just that, since you don't know enough about Muzan Kabutsuji, the effect isn't as strong. Kane looked at Aoki. Mr. Aomura, could we meet that doctor? If we work together, we might be able to create an even more powerful poison. Aoki thought for a moment and nodded. All right. If anyone else had made this request, he might have had some reservations, but he trusted Kane. Tomorrow, I'll bring Miss Tamayo to see the Ebuyashiki family head, Aoki added. Then I'll introduce her to you, Miss Kane. There's also a new material you can study to see if it can help with the poison. To see the Lord's illness? Kane sighed. I've seen the Lord many times, but there's no way to cure him. I hope Miss Tamayo can help. Don't get your hopes up too much, Aoki shook his head. Miss Tamayo was an excellent doctor, perhaps one of the best in the world. But doctors aren't gods, they can't break the Ebuyashiki family curse. At best, she could help extend Ebuyashiki Kagaya's life. Kane didn't say anything more, she knew the Lord's illness couldn't be cured with medicine. Aoki then said, Miss Kane, I also have a favor to ask. After saying goodbye to Kane, Aoki activated the Space Mark shuttle again, instantly arriving in a room with elegant decor. He stepped outside, opening the door just as a beautiful calico cat walked by. Meow! The calico cat stopped and tilted its head to look at him. Shichamaru. Aoki bent down, rubbing its small head. Meow! Shichamaru narrowed her eyes, showing a comfortable expression, and gently rubbed his palm with her head. Shichamaru, you are. Yashiro walked out from the other side, his face darkening when he saw Aoki. Why are you here again? Aoki ignored the question and asked, where is Miss Tamayo? In the lab? Yashiro gritted his teeth and nodded. Yes. Aoki rubbed Shichamaru's head twice more, stood up, and walked toward the lab. Go prepare the cups, he said. That guy. Yashiro glared at Aoki. Aoki made his way to the second floor, heading for the room at the end of the corridor. He knocked gently on the door. Ding ding ding. Mr. Aoki? Please come in. Miss Tamayo's voice came from inside. Aoki pushed the door open. The room was clean and filled with various experimental devices and medical equipment. Miss Tamayo, her long hair tied up and wearing a white coat, sat in front of a table with a microscope, exuding an intellectual and elegant aura. Miss Tamayo, I've been imitating Yashiro's knocking style perfectly, so how do you always recognize it's me? Tamayo paused her work, turned to face Aoki, and smiled. Because Yashiro always speaks while knocking. Aoki touched his chin. I noticed that, but imitating his voice exactly is too difficult. Tamayo looked at Aoki with a hint of doubt. Mr. Aoki, you seem a little different. My strength has improved a bit recently, Aoki explained briefly. Tamayo pondered for a moment, but the confusion on her face didn't fade. Aoki interrupted her thoughts. Miss Tamayo, I recently obtained a special kind of blood. As he spoke, he took out a vial filled with blood. Demon blood? Tamayo asked, her gaze sharp as she inspected the vial. Aoki nodded. I hope you can study it and see if it's possible to create an antidote that can turn demons back into humans. In the original storyline, Miss Tamayo was able to create a medicine that turned demons into humans. Nezuko's blood served as a research sample, providing her with crucial insights. His situation differed significantly from Nezuko's. While Nezuko relied on sleep to restore her strength, he consumed demons to gain energy and grow stronger. But now, he too had overcome the sun. Different paths led to the same goal. Perhaps it could serve as a reference. An antidote to turn demons back into humans? Tamayo stared at Aoki. Mr. Aoki, do you wish to become human again? Aoki was silent for a moment before smiling wryly. I do want to become human again, but I don't want to lose the power of a demon. Am I being too greedy? Everyone desires greater power and longer life. It's normal for you to feel that way, Tamayo said gently. However, you can't have it both ways. The power of a demon is bound to its characteristics. Separating them is nearly impossible. It's okay, Miss Tamayo. Let's at least try and see if we can make an antidote that can turn demons back into humans, Aoki said. The discussion about humans and demons could wait. The most important task now was to upgrade the White Walker to its full potential and defeat Muzan Kibutsuji. Chapter 112, Gift. Tamayo handled the blood with care. Mr. Aoki, I didn't gain much from the blood you asked me to study before. Never mind, Aoki shook his head. Though a bit disappointed, it was acceptable. He was already near the limit of being a demon and had overcome the sunlight. Even if some secrets were discovered, they wouldn't be of much help to him. By the way, Miss Tamayo, I'm ready to take action against Muzan Kibutsuji. Crash! The beaker in Tamayo's hand fell to the ground and shattered, but she paid it no attention. She turned her head and looked at Aoki blankly. Mr. Aoki, what did you just say? Aoki gazed at Tamayo's beautiful face and repeated seriously, I am ready to attack Muzan Kibutsuji. Tamayo was silent for a long time as she studied her emotions. Are you sure? Yes. This time, Aoki didn't hide his confidence. As long as Kibutsuji Muzan shows up, he's as good as dead. Tamayo took a deep breath. When will we do it? I'm not sure yet, Aoki replied. I plan to use the blue spider lily to lure Kibutsuji Muzan out, but to do that, I need to make some preparations. Tamayo asked, do you need my help? Aoki shook his head. No, the Demon Slayer Corps will handle this. They are more agile than us, and have much more influence on society. You're right, it's more fitting for them to take responsibility. Tamayo felt her heartbeat quicken. The people and demons resisting Muzan Kibutsuji were uniting. Wasn't this the ideal outcome she had always envisioned? Could they finally defeat Muzan Kibutsuji? Aoki continued, however, there is something I do need Miss Tamayo's help with. The compound I showed you before was created by 2 doctors from the Demon Slayer Corps. I'd like you to collaborate with them to see if the poison can be further optimized. No problem, Tamayo agreed without hesitation. She was willing to take any risk to defeat Muzan Kibutsuji. Besides, since Mr. Aoki introduced it, she trusted there would be no danger. Aoki nodded. There's one last thing. He briefly explained the situation with Ubuyashiki Kagaya. Tamayo's expression became thoughtful. I remember Mr. Yorichi Tsujakuni mentioning this long ago, but it doesn't seem to be a simple illness. Even if I examine him, I'm afraid there won't be much I can do. Aoki replied, just do your best. If you can help extend his life, great. If not, it's okay. Tamayo nodded lightly. In that case, I'll do my best. At that moment, there was a knock on the door, followed by Yashiro's voice. Lady Tamayo. Aoki and Tamayo exchanged smiles. Aoki and Tamayo sat by the window, drinking and admiring the bright moon and starry sky. Their conversation, devoid of any elegance, revolved mostly around battle. Tamayo held her wine glass in one hand and the window frame with the other. 6 of the 12 Kazuki are dead. When Muzan Kabutsuji turned you into a demon, he surely didn't expect he would create such a formidable enemy for himself. I hope it makes them tremble, Aoki said. After killing Kokushibo, he should be able to ascend to the next level. A faint smile appeared on Tamayo's face, and suddenly her eyes lit up, a trace of excitement in her voice. It's almost dawn. Aoki turned to look. Tamayo's hair was down, making her appear less dignified and more youthful and energetic. Despite having lived for centuries, her appearance remained that of a 19-year-old. What's wrong? Tamayo asked, puzzled. I remember Miss Tamayo saying she liked the break of dawn, Aoki said. Tamayo lifted a few strands of her long hair. I don't exactly like it. I yearn for the light but fear the sun. At dawn, I feel like I'm closer to the light. Aoki raised his hand, and suddenly there was a large black hat in his grasp. Tamayo looked at it curiously. She recognized this bamboo hat. Mr. Aoki used to carry it with him, but it had suddenly disappeared. She had assumed he had discarded it or placed it somewhere else. To her surprise, he still had it. But where had he kept such a large object before? Here, Aoki handed the sun hat to Miss Tamayo. She took it but looked confused. Try it on, Aoki suggested. Tamayo quickly put it on, trusting that whatever Aoki's purpose, it would soon become clear. She found the hat was well made. Though it appeared large, it was surprisingly comfortable, even more so than a regular hat. Come, Aoki led Miss Tamashi to the door and had her stand in front of it. She obeyed, though puzzled. And now? Aoki smiled but said nothing. He grabbed the door handle and suddenly threw the door open. Golden sunlight flooded the room. Tamayo remained still, her gaze fixed on Aoki. It took her 2 seconds to react. Slowly, she turned her head to look outside, a strong shock appearing on her beautiful face beneath the bamboo hat. Aoki admired Miss Tamayo. This was the first time he had seen someone else, another demon, to be precise, wearing a sun hat. Aside from being slightly larger, it looked no different from an ordinary hat. Miss Tamayo's beautiful face was faintly visible through the black veil. Miss Tamayo, how does it feel to stand in the sun again? Aoki asked. Tamayo sighed. It feels like a dream. I never thought I'd be able to stand in the sun safely. Mr. Aoki, what is this hat? It's a magical item called a sunshade hat, Aoki explained. As long as you wear it, it protects demons from the sun. Incredible. Tamayo stood in the sunlight for a moment, then stepped back into the shadows. She closed the door, removed the hat, and returned it to Aoki. It's a wonderful feeling to walk in the sun with a demon's body. Aoki didn't take it back. This is for you, Miss Tamayo. He had already overcome the sun, making the sun hat useless to him. Otherwise, it would just gather dust in another space. Tamayo shook her head. No, I can't accept such a precious thing. Aoki insisted, I already have something better. Something better? Tamayo was stunned. Could there be another magical item like this? Then she remembered Mr. Aoki's gourd that could turn ordinary wine into something demons could taste. Aoki nodded. Take it, Miss Tamayo. I didn't hold back when I asked you to do various research before. Besides, there will be more things in the future where I'll need your help. Tamayo pursed her lips and smiled. Alright, then I won't refuse. Chapter 113, The three girls met for the first time. After receiving the sunshade hat, Tamayo's playful side emerged, and she spent the entire day enjoying herself. She even took a walk in the streets at noon, when the sun was at its peak. As the sun set and dusk faded into night, Aoki asked, "Are you ready?" Tamayo nodded and glanced at Yashiro, who stood beside her. "Yashiro, I'll be leaving the house in your care." Yashiro reluctantly nodded in agreement. Aoki took hold of Tamayo's arm, and in the blink of an eye, they vanished from the room. Tamayo felt a flash of light before her eyes, and then she found herself standing in a large courtyard instead of the familiar room. She quickly composed herself and asked, "Where are we?" Before Aoki could respond, Abuyashiki Amane approached them. "Mr. Aomura, is this Miss Tamayo?" she inquired. "Yes," Aoki confirmed. "Miss Tamayo, this is Mrs. Amane, the wife of the Abuyashiki family head, the leader of the Demon Slayer Corps." "Thank you for coming, Miss Tamayo." "Mrs. Amane, it's my pleasure," Tamayo responded. After exchanging pleasantries, the three of them proceeded inside. During the walk, Mrs. Amane explained, "We were too exhausted yesterday, and the family head, Kagaya, was more severely injured and is bedridden. We couldn't greet you earlier. Please forgive us, Miss Tamayo." "Please don't worry about it, Mrs. Amane," Tamayo reassured her, all the while taking in her surroundings. The courtyard was different from what she had imagined. There were no layers of guards, nor were there any pillars of the Demon Slayer Corps in sight. On the surface, it appeared like an ordinary wealthy family's courtyard. Led by Abuyashiki Amane, they arrived at a room. As soon as they entered, a pungent smell of herbs filled the air. Abuyashiki Kagaya lay in the center of the room, with two children dressed as girls tending to him, one of whom was actually a boy. The sons of the Abuyashiki family were often raised as daughters due to the family's weakened constitution. "Is that Mr. Aomura and Miss Tamayo?" Abuyashiki Kagaya asked from his bed. Though he appeared frail, his voice remained calm, and his smile was gentle. Tamayo silently admired him. Leading the Demon Slayer Corps and battling demons for thousands of years, the Abuyashiki family was indeed remarkable. When her gaze fell upon Abuyashiki Kagaya's face, she was startled by what she saw, a strange and even terrifying disease. Aoki spoke up, "Thank you for seeing us, head of the Abuyashiki family." "Mr. Aomura, there's no need to thank me. You're trying to save me," Abuyashiki Kagaya replied, then turned his head slightly towards Tamayo. "Thank you, Miss Tamayo, for coming. Head of the Abuyashiki family, you don't need to be polite. I deeply respect your family's 1,000-year struggle against Muzan Kabutsuji," Tamayo replied. After a few polite exchanges, Tamayo began to examine Abuyashiki Kagaya. Once she finished, she and Aoki left the room and moved to another one. "How is he?" Aoki asked. Tamayo's expression was serious. "It's grim. If it continues like this, the head of the Abuyashiki family might not last even 5 years. 5 years. Abuyashiki Amane lowered her eyes. Abuyashiki Kagaya was 19 years old, which meant he would only be 24 in 5 years. But this was the fate of the Abuyashiki family. Since the appearance of Muzan Kabutsuji, no member of the Abuyashiki clan had lived past 30. Aoki knew that what Miss Tamayo said was true. In reality, it was even harsher. Abuyashiki Kagaya would be near death in about 3 years. "Can it be delayed?" Aoki asked. Tamayo nodded. "It's possible, but only if the condition doesn't worsen further. Once Muzan Kabutsuji is defeated, the curse on the Abuyashiki family should be lifted. But whether the condition will worsen..." Aoki trailed off, uncertain. "That would be enough," Tamayo said, her tone easing. "If the curse is lifted, under ideal conditions, the head of the Abuyashiki family could live beyond 40 years. 40 years? Aoki looked at Mrs. Amane. Tears were already streaming down Abuyashiki Amane's face. After leaving some medicine and arranging a follow-up visit in 2 days, Aoki took Miss Tamayo back. At the Butterfly Mansion, Kane and Shinobu sat opposite each other. "Sister, what kind of person do you think Miss Tamayo is?" Shinobu asked. Kane thought for a moment before replying, "She must be a kind and knowledgeable woman to be friends with Mr. Aomura." Shinobu speculated, "The poison she created is terrifying." I think she might be more of a serious and cold person. Kane gently scolded, stop guessing. You'll find out when they arrive. As soon as she finished speaking, a spatial fluctuation filled the room, and two figures appeared out of thin air. The man on the left was instantly recognizable to them. Kane and Shinobu immediately shifted their attention to the woman beside Mr. Aomura. She appeared to be around 20 years old, dressed in a solemn kimono, with her hair tied up. Her face was exquisite and flawless, her eyes calm yet carrying a hint of world weariness. Her intellectual and elegant demeanor made it difficult to look away. What a beautiful woman, they both thought, captivated by her appearance and the contradictory aura of youth and experience she exuded. At the same time, Tamayo was also observing the two girls in front of her. They looked alike, clearly sisters. One was tall and graceful, gentle as water, while the other was petite and serious, with completely different temperaments. This is Kocho Kane, a pillar of the Demon Slayer Corps. And this is her sister, Kocho Shinobu, who is a master of poisons. They come from a long line of medics and are highly skilled, Aoki introduced them. Kane smiled warmly. Miss Tamayo, I've heard of your name for a long time. The poison you created is remarkable. The design of your poison is also very intricate, Tamayo replied, secretly impressed. She could sense no hostility from these two. If anything, this was likely thanks to Mr. Aoki. However, she also sensed that the younger sister, Shinobu, was slightly wary of her, while Kane, the Demon Slayer Corps pillar, was openly friendly. Her gentle smile made Tamayo want to be close to her. This is a girl who is gentle to her core, Tamayo thought. Kane continued, Miss Tamayo, regarding the use of two specific medicinal ingredients in your poison. Tamayo responded, that idea came from an old medical book I read from abroad, combined with my understanding of Muzan Kabutsuji's blood. The two quickly became engrossed in their discussion, and Shinobu soon joined in. The three of them grew more excited as they talked, their conversation becoming increasingly technical. Aoki watched for a moment before quietly leaving the room. Seeing the three of them so absorbed, a smile spread across his face. He had been concerned that they might not get along, but it turned out they were so enthusiastic in their conversation that they left him completely out of it. Chapter 114, The Last Attempt. Mount Kumatori. Tanjiro stepped out of the room, greeted by a blast of cold air. Huh. It's getting colder, he said, rubbing his palms together and blowing warm air into them. He picked up an axe, preparing to chop some firewood. Starting work so early? A familiar voice suddenly interrupted him. Tanjiro turned his head, eyes lighting up as he trotted over. Mr. Aomura, it's been a while. Aoki nodded, I've been busy these past few days. Tanjiro sniffed the air and looked puzzled. Mr. Aomura, your scent seems a little different. You have a sharp nose, Aoki smiled. This was his first visit to Tanjiro's home since he had overcome the sun. Tanjiro detected a hint of happiness in Mr. Aomura's scent and grinned. Are we going to practice the dance of the fire god now? Aoki glanced at the axe in Tanjiro's hand. Tanjiro quickly put it back against the wall. It's fine, I'll ask Takeo to chop the wood later. Besides, the money you gave us is enough for us to live on for a long time. We don't need to burn charcoal for a while. Creak. At that moment, the door to the house opened again. Nezuko stepped out, saw Aoki, and ran over with a bright smile on her face. Mr. Aomura. Miss Nezuko. Aoki noticed the jade pendant still around her neck. The rest of the Kamado family gradually woke up and came out to greet Aoki. After exchanging pleasantries with Kamado-ki, Aoki took Tanjiro away for training. This time, he chose an open space instead of the shade of a tree. He thought that perhaps the sun could assist in learning the breath of the sun technique. The bright sunlight bathed the two of them, though by November, the midday sun was only slightly warm. As Tanjiro taught and Aoki learned, time passed quickly. Though Tanjiro wasn't a skilled teacher, he didn't need to be. He simply followed the method his father had used to teach him. Before long, after completing the day's lesson, Aoki fell into deep thought. He didn't feel any improvement, nor had he gained any new abilities. If becoming a breath user was similar to becoming a martial artist, it might require guidance from a true master of the craft. Tanjiro's understanding of the dance of the fire god wasn't advanced enough to serve as that guide. However, as his trust with the demon slayer core deepened, Aoki had also sought advice from the pillars, particularly from Kocho Kane, about the breathing techniques. The pillars were all masters of breathing, but even then, Aoki hadn't managed to learn the technique or gain any new abilities. Is it that I'm incapable of mastering the breathing technique? Aoki wondered. This wouldn't be surprising. The breathing technique originated from Yoriichi Tsujikuni, who was practically born to defeat Muzan Kabutsuji. If you look at it broadly, the breathing technique was created specifically to combat demons. But what if a demon could master the breathing technique? From a physiological standpoint, it made sense that demons couldn't use it. Breathing techniques involve intense inhalation, speeding up blood flow and heart rate, raising body temperature, and thereby increasing strength. Even the mark enhancement associated with the breathing techniques, which allowed swordsmen to break through physical limits, required a body temperature of over 39 degrees Celsius and a heart rate exceeding 200 beats per minute. But as a demon, even with increased oxygen intake, Aoki's body temperature wouldn't rise. Is it impossible for demons to master breathing? Is it my lack of talent? Or something else? Aoki couldn't be sure. He couldn't help but feel a bit of regret. The potential of breathing techniques was immense, perhaps even greater than that of demons. Considering Yoriichi Tsujikuni's exceptional abilities, the combat power of a fully realized breath user could surpass that of a demon. It could even be a 2-star profession. Tanjiro wiped the sweat from his forehead and took a sip of water. For him, performing the dance of the fire god was physically taxing. He couldn't understand how his father, who had been weak at the time, had managed to dance it all night. Mr. Aomura seems a little regretful and troubled, Tanjiro thought, glancing at Aoki. He could faintly sense these emotions, but wasn't entirely sure. Aoki snapped out of his thoughts. Thank you for your hard work, Tanjiro. Let's stop here for today. Tanjiro smiled warmly. It's no trouble, Mr. Aomura. You're learning very quickly. At this rate, you'll master everything in no time. It took me several years initially. Walking fast doesn't necessarily mean walking far, and walking slowly doesn't necessarily mean you'll fall behind, Aoki replied calmly. Tanjiro was a perfect example of this. At first glance, Tanjiro didn't seem like a genius. It had taken him 2 full years to learn the breathing technique from scratch. Takedo Muchiro, on the other hand, had become a pillar within 2 months of beginning his breathing training. Kanroji Mitsuri took a bit longer, but still less than a year. Compared to these prodigies, Tanjiro's initial progress was unremarkable. Yet Tanjiro was one of the few who mastered the red blade, transparency, and the mark simultaneously. In the original story, by the time of the final battle, Tanjiro, who had learned the 13th form of the breath of the sun, was truly the strongest among the demon slayer corps. Aoki returned Tanjiro to his home. Mr. Aomura, brother. Nezuko greeted them eagerly. You're back. Kamaduki came out of the charcoal-burning house, wiping her hands on her apron. Mr. Aomura, will you stay for dinner? No, I have other matters to attend to, Aoki replied, glancing around. Thick smoke was billowing out of the house, indicating that the charcoal was burning. Although Tanjiro and Nezuko's siblings didn't approach, they looked at him curiously. Compared to their first meeting, the Kamadu family seemed healthier, their faces more rosy, and their living conditions had visibly improved. After taking in the scene, Aoki's gaze returned to Tanjiro. Tanjiro, I probably won't be coming here again for a while. This was his final attempt. If he could have learned the breathing technique or gained another extraordinary ability, his strength would have grown further. But he had failed. There was no more time to waste. From now on, he needed to focus all his time and energy on Muzan Kabutsuji. After defeating Muzan, he would have plenty of time to see if he could master the breathing technique. I understand, Tanjiro said with a bright smile, bowing. I wish you all the best, Mr. Aomura. Take care, Aoki waved before disappearing. Tanjiro walked toward the charcoal-burning house. Mom, I'll help. Alright, Kamaduki smiled. Mr. Aomura won't be visiting for a while? Nezuko asked, touching the jade pendant on her neck, the first real gift she had ever received. Chapter 115, The Plan Begins, Scandal. At the Demon Slayer headquarters, Aoki and Ubuyashiki Kagaya sat facing each other. The head of the Ubuyashiki family seems to be in good spirits today, Aoki observed. Miss Tamayo's medicine is very effective, Ubuyashiki Kagaya replied with a smile. This is all thanks to Mr. Aomura. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, Aoki shifted the conversation to business. Are all preparations in place? He asked. Don't worry, Mr. Aomura. Everything is ready, Ubuyashiki Kagaya responded seriously. All 3 locations have been set up, with backup options near each one. Aoki inquired further, how does the head of the Ubuyashiki family plan to disseminate the news? How about using the Peach News? Ubuyashiki Kagaya suggested. Aoki slowly nodded. Good. Gossip is human nature, and salacious news always spreads rapidly, leaving no trace behind. Mr. Aomura, is there anything else you'd like to add? Ubuyashiki Kagaya asked. Aoki shook his head. Let the plan begin. On a busy street, Muzan Kabutsuji walked alone, his face expressionless, despite the bustling crowd around him. His mood had been foul lately. Ever since that abomination's death, nothing had gone right. No trace of the blue spider lily, and the Ubuyashiki family continued to harass him like stubborn cockroaches. 7 upper moons, 6 dead. Demons had been dying in large numbers, and he could do nothing against the enemy. No matter how powerful, his enemies were like elusive rats, always slipping through his grasp. And he couldn't even find demons that could counter the defector's abilities. Suddenly, Muzan stopped, his attention drawn to a nearby izakaya. The small establishment wasn't doing well, only 2 customers were inside, a middle-aged man with a thick beard and a bald man with a crooked nose. Has anything interesting happened recently? The middle-aged man asked. Interesting? There's nothing interesting in this wretched world, the bald man cursed, taking a swig of his drink. I did hear something intriguing, the bald man said, burping. Someone found a patch of blue flowers on the mountain north of the city. Blue flowers? That's a load of crap, the bearded man scoffed, downing his drink. The bald man grinned suggestively. The flowers aren't the point. The real story is the 3 people near them, heh. 3 people? The bearded man raised an eyebrow. 1 man, 2 women, the bald man said with a lecherous smile. 2 sluts, the bearded man yelled. The bald man snickered. Want to head to Flower Street later? Muzan glanced at the 2 men indifferently before turning to leave. He had encountered numerous reports of blue flowers over the years, none of which led to the blue spider lily. As he walked away, Muzan heard another voice. Let me tell you, those 3 people near the blue flowers. It was a woman's voice, whispering with 3 other women. Muzan hesitated, then slipped into a nearby alley. He didn't have high hopes for this lead, but it needed to be investigated. Soon after, a figure appeared, kneeling before him. My lord. Go to the mountain north of the city and find the blue flower, Muzan commanded. Yes, my lord. The figure dared not ask any questions. Only after Muzan left did he raise his head. On the mountain north of the city, a blue flower. The figure hurried off. Muzan kept a sliver of his attention on this subordinate. He doubted it was the blue spider lily, but what if it was? A day passed, quickly. We haven't found it yet. Muzan's patience was wearing thin. What a waste. None of them were useful. He should have sent more demons. Suddenly, Muzan froze, his face darkening. The demon he had sent to find the blue spider lily was dead, killed instantly without even seeing the enemy. That demon wasn't weak. The one who did this was either from the Demon Slayer Corps or a defector. Muzan's face twisted with murderous intent. Demon slayers, defectors, he would exterminate them all one day. One by one, demons gathered, kneeling before Muzan. After confirming their presence, Muzan's arms split into tentacles, piercing into their bodies and pouring in large amounts of blood. The demons' expressions contorted in agony. Ah! Suddenly, one demon's body began to swell uncontrollably before collapsing into a puddle of sludge, which quickly evaporated into black smoke. Muzan watched the scene impassively. It was an honor for these failures to receive his blood. If they couldn't handle it, they weren't fit to live. The remaining demons shivered in fear, but there was no turning back now. Bang, bang, bang. 3 more demons couldn't withstand the transformation and died, their bodies collapsing. In the end, only 2 of the 8 demons survived, their auras now comparable to those of the lower moons. However, the violent transformation had drastically altered their appearances. One now resembled a large goblin, while the other was completely inhuman, its head covered in eyes. Their bodies were twisted, barely recognizable as once having been human. Go, Muzan ordered coldly. Bring me the blue flower from the mountain north of the city. And if you encounter any demon slayers, kill them all. Lower moon level demons were insignificant to him. They were only useful if they could grow into upper moons. Unfortunately, over the years, only 6 demons had ever reached that level, and now, only Kokushibo remained. Yes. The 2 demons, their eyes bloodshot and filled with savage killing intent, quickly ran out of the city. In a narrow alley, the 2 monstrous demons squeezed out and ran wildly through the streets. Fortunately, it was late at night, and the streets were empty. Only a drunkard saw them and was so terrified that he wet himself. Chapter 116, Disadvantages, 1252. Aoki and Kane stood side by side, a headless corpse at their feet that was quickly turning into black smoke and dissipating. To avoid premature detection, this demon was eliminated by Kane. However, the experience of this demon could barely amount to 3 points, so Aoki wasn't particularly concerned, observing it with mild interest. So this is what a demon looks like after being beheaded by a Nichiren sword, he remarked, witnessing the end of a demon in this manner for the first time. Kane sheathed her long sword. A demon has appeared. It seems Muzan has taken notice of the news we spread. The first step of our plan was successful. Aoki shook his head, tempering her excitement. Not necessarily. The demon might have already been on a mission to find the blue spider lily and just happened to hear the news and decided to investigate on its own. You're right, Mr. Aomura, Kane said, a bit disappointed but quickly recovering as she turned to look at the nearby city. If this demon was acting on Muzan Kabutsuji's orders, does that mean Muzan Kabutsuji himself is in this city? It's possible, Aoki replied. But even if Muzan Kabutsuji is here, finding him won't be easy. In a crowded city, finding a demon who can change its appearance and suppress its presence is nearly an impossible task. After their discussion, Aoki and Kane separated, using space manipulation to transport themselves to a flat area on the mountainside. A small sea of flowers spread out before them, but there was only one kind of flower, blue, resembling the spider lily, with a captivating beauty. However, upon closer inspection, it became clear these flowers didn't move, even when the wind blew. These were artificial flowers, specially made by Ubuyashiki Kagaya. They were so convincing that even a flower expert would have trouble recognizing them as fakes without close examination. Mr. Aomura, a young man dressed as a monk, approached, hands clasped together. Mr. Himejima, Aoki acknowledged him with a slight nod. Though these weren't real blue spider lilies, the fake flowers played a crucial role in their plan. Normally, Aoki would oversee this operation personally. If he had to leave, the strongest member of the Demon Slayer Corps, Jyomi Himejima, would take charge. Aoki found a spot to sit down, hoping the demon they had just encountered was indeed sent by Muzan Kabutsuji. This was their second attempt. The first time, the news had spread for a while, but nothing happened. To avoid exposing any flaws, they terminated the plan, relocated, and began their second attempt. This time, luck was on their side. A demon showed up the next day. However, it still remained to be seen if Muzan Kabutsuji had taken the bait. Aoki didn't have to wait long. Just over an hour later, a petite figure floated toward them. Shinobu looked serious. "Mr. Aomura, we've detected traces of more demons." Aoki's interest piqued. "How many? How strong are they?" "There are 2 in total. Their strength seems on par with the lower moons, but there are no markings on their eyes." "I'll go check it out now," Aoki said, quickly standing. 2 waves of demons appearing in such a short time was a promising sign, though not a guarantee. Still, there was a high probability that Muzan Kabutsuji was involved. After reassembling their team, including Jyomi, Aoki, and Shinobu teleported directly to Kane. "What's the situation?" Aoki asked. Kane didn't speak, instead slightly nodding toward the ground below. Aoki stepped forward and looked down to see a grotesque creature with eyes covering its head. Even among demons, it was rare to see one so utterly deformed. "Is this one of the monsters Muzan Kabutsuji forcibly created with his blood?" Aoki mused. Muzan Kabutsuji could indeed rapidly create lower-level demons. However, it seemed this ability had its limits. "Sister, why is there only 1 demon left?" Shinobu asked softly. "They split up," Kane explained. "The other one is currently being tracked by Mr. Tomioka." "Very well. Let's not act just yet," Aoki instructed. The difference in power between a lower moon demon and a Hashira was significant. With a large portion of the demon slayer core strength concentrated on this mountain, dealing with these 2 demons would be simple. However, doing so too quickly might alert Muzan Kabutsuji to the trap. Waiting a bit longer would make the situation appear more natural. Of course, this was only relative. Once the 2 demons were killed, Muzan Kabutsuji might still sense something amiss. Plans are never foolproof. The 3 of them quietly followed the monstrous demon. Aoki quickly noticed something unusual. "This demon seems mentally unstable." Kane nodded. "To be precise, its mind isn't sound. The other demon has the same issue. While their auras are comparable to those of the lower moons, they are much weaker in other aspects. For instance, their senses are dull. If they were true lower moons, they would have noticed us long ago." Aoki considered this carefully. It seems this is another side effect of the forced maturation. Ultimately, it came down to potential and talent. If a demon was talented enough to easily bear the blood Muzan Kabutsuji gave them, these side effects wouldn't occur. But true geniuses were rare even among demons. This mountain had been carefully chosen by Aoki and the Demon Slayer Corps. It wasn't too big or too small. There was only a small patch of blue spider lilies, making it difficult for the 2 demons to find the correct location. Aoki remained patient, waiting silently. To catch a big fish, one must be prepared to play the game for a long time. 2 days passed quickly. "His mind is deteriorating," Kane observed. "He must be very hungry," Aoki replied. "He's begun eating wild animals to stave off starvation. It looks like he's about to lose control." "When should we start?" Kane asked, unable to contain her curiosity. Aoki was about to respond when his expression suddenly changed. "Kane, I leave this to you." Before she could reply, he disappeared. Did something happen with Mr. Tomioka? Kane wondered, refocusing on the demon below. She had to keep an eye on it and not let it escape. On a cliff, Tomioka Gai and Jyomi Himejima hid behind a rock, the former holding a broken wooden sign. Below the cliff, a tall, ferocious-looking monster was quickly approaching. Aoki quietly emerged beside them. One glance was enough to understand why Tomioka-ju had summoned him without delay. Chapter 117, Ideal Development. Mr. Aomura, what should we do now? Himejima asked, his tone calm, despite the tension in the air. The demon was heading straight toward them, and behind them lay the blue spider lily. Let's take care of it, it's about time, Aoki decided, without hesitation. 2 days of stalling had been enough. If they could fool Kabutsuji Muzan, that would be great. If not, prolonging it any further wouldn't make much difference. Flowers. Blue flowers. The demon's blood-red eyes widened as it staggered forward. Hungry. So hungry. I really want to eat someone. But there were no people on this mountain, and only a few wild animals. If it wanted to eat, it would have to leave. But before that, it had to complete its master's mission. Where are the blue flowers? The demon let out a harsh breath through its large nostrils. Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of it. The demon froze. Where did this person come from? It hadn't seen or heard them at all. Then it dismissed the thought. It didn't matter how this person got there, what mattered was that they were there, and its stomach was growling with hunger. Wait, that's not right. The demon squinted and froze again. This wasn't a human, it was another demon. And not just any demon, it recognized this one. Why is this demon just standing there? Aoki wondered, surprised. Lately, most demons had fled the moment they saw him. Could the ripening process really affect their intelligence so drastically? Despite his confusion, Aoki didn't hesitate. He struck out with a punch, the air crackling with the force. I remember now, he's a traitor. Fear flashed in the demon's eyes, but before it could react, its head exploded. Of course, losing its head didn't mean death for a demon. As the demon's body began to regenerate, Aoki grabbed its shoulder and activated Demon Devour, absorbing it in an instant. Killed a demon and gained 30 experience points. Not bad, Aoki murmured with a nod. If ordinary demons were like mosquito legs, then lower-ranked demons were more like crab claws, small, but satisfying when you had enough of them. After nodding to Tomioka and Himejima on the cliff, Aoki vanished without another word. On the other side of the mountain, Kane kept a close eye on the demon with the eyes on its head. Next to her, Aoki appeared silently. Kane started, then relaxed. Mr. Aomura, what happened? The demon over there reached the blue spider lily. I took care of it. What about this one? Deal with it too, but wait a bit. They needed to make it look convincing. If the two demons weren't together, it wouldn't make sense to eliminate them at the same time. 2 hours later, Aoki used the same method to easily dispatch the eye demon, gaining another 30 experience points. As she watched Aoki absorb the demon, Kane said, I wonder how Kabutsuji Muzan will react. We'll find out soon enough, Aoki replied. The worst-case scenario was that Muzan realized it was a trap and decided to back off. But Aoki thought this was unlikely. The blue spider lily was fake, and the only people who knew were absolutely trustworthy, they would never reveal the truth. Even if Muzan sensed something was amiss, he wouldn't be able to confirm it. Most importantly, only a few demons had died. To Kabutsuji Muzan, that was hardly worth noticing. On a lonely country road, Kabutsuji Muzan's face darkened, though he wasn't exactly surprised. Lately, the defector had been killing demons faster than he could create them. It was something Muzan was getting used to. This defector was even more troublesome than the one from before. However, the fact that 2 groups of demons had died without yielding any useful information left him feeling uneasy. Go there in person? He dismissed the thought immediately. How could such a trivial matter warrant his personal involvement? It would be worth the trip if he could capture the defector, but without a way to counteract the defector's ability to escape, even cornering him on that mountain would be meaningless. He wasn't about to waste his time. Give up? That thought never crossed Kabutsuji Muzan's mind. What did it matter if a few demons died? The sole purpose of their existence was to find the blue spider lily for him. If they died in the process, it was a death well earned. Send another group of demons, more this time. Kibutsuji Muzan made his decision. If they couldn't win through strength, they would win through numbers. Of course, he didn't expect them to unite and defeat the defector. But with more demons, it would become increasingly difficult for the defector to kill them all, and the chances of gathering information would increase significantly. Demons were the least valuable thing to him. As long as he found the blue spider lily, even if all his demons died, he wouldn't feel a shred of sorrow. At the location of the blue spider lily, Kane gently descended, her butterfly-patterned haori fluttering like the wings of a real butterfly. A young man dressed as a monk looked up at the sound. "Mr. Himejima," Kane called, "where is Mr. Aomura?" "Ba," Himejima replied, clasping his hands together. "Mr. Aomura is out hunting demons. He should be back soon." "Kane, is something the matter?" The next batch of demons hadn't arrived yet, but Aoki wasn't wasting time. He was out hunting demons to gain experience, even if it wasn't much. Every little bit counted, and it also served to confuse Kibutsuji Muzan. Kane said, "Another group of demons is coming." Like before, these demons should have power comparable to the lower ranks. But this time, there are 10 of them, which exceeds our monitoring capabilities. And it seems there's a real lower rank among them. 10? I didn't expect to hear good news right after returning, Aoki's voice chimed in as he appeared next to them. This was exactly how he had hoped things would develop. Kibutsuji Muzan was playing right into their hands. "You're back, Mr. Aomura," Kane said with a relieved smile. These demons weren't particularly difficult to deal with, but Muzan Kibutsuji could strike at any time. Without Mr. Aomura, they wouldn't stand a chance. Ba, Mr. Aomura, what should we do next?" Himejima asked. Aoki didn't answer right away. Instead, he asked, "Has Kokushibo shown up?" Kane shook her head. "No trace of him yet, but the mountain is vast. We can only monitor a small area. It's possible he arrived, but we just haven't detected him." Aoki thought for a moment. "Then let's deal with this batch of demons first." Chapter 118, Muzan's Attack, Aborted Plan. There was no reason not to take advantage of the opportunity that had presented itself. This time, Aoki decided against delaying any further. Once these 10 demons were slain, Muzan Kibutsuji would undoubtedly realize something was amiss with this mountain. Any further trickery would be useless. However, Aoki wasn't worried about Muzan giving up. The more one invests, the harder it is to walk away. Muzan Kibutsuji had poured a considerable amount of time, energy, and subordinates into this endeavor. Would he abandon it all due to a minor setback? That was certainly not his style. Aoki immediately began the hunt. Although 10 lower-ranked demons weren't as satisfying as upper-ranked demons, they could still temporarily sate his appetite. Muzan Kibutsuji suddenly halted, his face darkening with murderous intent. "He's still there." Another demon dispatched to find the blue spider lily had lost contact. From its last memory, it was clear that the defector had struck again. Whether the defector had never left or had returned, one thing was certain, the defector had his sights set on that mountain. Continuing to send demons, there was akin to handing them over to the defector. Give up? The very thought crossed Muzan's mind, only to be swiftly torn apart. No. To give up would be to show weakness to that rat, something he absolutely could not tolerate. Should he send Kokushibo? This idea briefly flickered in Muzan's mind. In the past, difficult tasks had always been assigned to the upper ranks. Now, only Kokushibo remained among them. But he quickly dismissed the thought. He had to admit, Kokushibo might not be a match for the defector. Sending him could result in nothing more than delivering another gift to the defector, and possibly even Kokushibo's death. Muzan mulled it over, and the only viable option seemed to be to take action himself. However, the thought of making the effort to go there, only to watch the rat slip away, filled him with deep dissatisfaction. Unless, of course, the blue spider lily was indeed on that mountain. Wait. A sudden thought struck Muzan. What if the defector wasn't staying on that mountain just to kill demons, but also to find something, like the blue spider lily. Logically, the defector shouldn't know about the flower, but the defector was a strange one. Perhaps he had come across the information somewhere. As a demon, the defector would also desire the blue spider lily to conquer the sun. Could it be possible that the blue spider lily is really on that mountain? The idea took root in Muzan's mind, growing stronger with each passing moment. The more he thought about it, the more plausible it seemed. I must go. Muzan decided, a cold smile forming on his face. If the defector was lingering on the mountain in hopes of obtaining the flower, then this might be the perfect chance to eliminate him. This time, Muzan didn't plan to go alone, he intended to bring significant power with him. Even if the defector had the Demon Slayer Corps as allies, it didn't matter. In fact, he preferred it that way. If the entire Corps was there, he could deal with the defector and the Demon Slayer Corps at once, killing two birds with one stone. Soon, the last link in the chain sent to find the blue spider lily was severed. But this time, Muzan was not angered. Instead, his heart was filled with a burning desire for the flower. Free skill point, +1. You have killed lower rank 5 and gained 40 experience points. After dispatching the last demon, Aoki heard the familiar voice in his mind and felt a surge of excitement. Good, very good. Finally, a worthwhile prize. Free skill points, exactly what he needed most at this moment. With a thought, the azure blue screen appeared before his eyes. Name, Aoki. Strength, 24. Constitution, 24. Intelligence, 25. Agility, 24. Occupation, hunter, White Walker, martial artist. White Walker. Quality. Level, LV19, 1317/1900. Skills, Demon Blood 6, Space Shuttle 2, Transparent World, Devourer 2. Quest, none. Free skill points, 2. Only 600 more experience points to go, Aoki thought, feeling a blaze of ambition. 2 more waves of demons like this, and it would be enough. This monster slaying was starting to feel rewarding. With 3 free skill points now within reach, it was only a matter of time before he could max out his level and learn the second level of Transparent World. Then, he could accidentally leak the location of the blue spider lily to Muzan Kibutsuji. Aoki didn't return to the others, instead, he continued to patrol the mountain. All 10 demons that Kane had mentioned were dead, including the newly promoted lower rank 5. However, as she had pointed out, they couldn't monitor every inch of the mountain. There could be demons that had slipped through their surveillance. Despite thoroughly combing the area, Aoki found no trace of any more demons. Near a small sea of blue flowers, 2 women were conversing. One was tall and beautiful, gentle as water, while the other was intellectual and elegant, her beauty unmatched. They were Kane and Lady Tamayo. Aoki had promised Lady Tamayo that he would allow her to witness Muzan Kibutsuji's death firsthand, so he had arranged a time to bring her over. Seeing Aoki approach, Kane immediately stepped forward to greet him. Mr. Aomura, you're back. How did it go? Everything's been taken care of, Aoki replied. As expected of Mr. Aomura. Kane expressed her admiration. This time, there were 10 demons with the power of lower ranks. I wonder what kind of lineup Muzan will send next. I'm hoping for kokushibo, Aoki remarked. Lady Tamayo then produced 3 fusiform syringes. Mr. Aomura, this is the final version of the poison. 1 injection is enough to ensure that Kibutsuji Muzan will be affected. Aoki took the syringes, inspecting them briefly before asking, has anything changed from the previous version? Lady Tamayo explained, the effects remain the same, cellular destruction, accelerated aging, and prevention of cell division. However, with the help of Miss Kane and Miss Shinobu, the potency of the poison has been greatly enhanced. Now, in just 1 minute, it can age Kibutsuji Muzan by 100 years, and the cellular destruction effect masks the poison, making it even harder to detect. Aoki nodded in approval. In this scenario, even if the battle dragged on, his advantage would only grow stronger over time. However, the poison still lacked any effect to turn Muzan human. He wasn't sure whether such an effect had simply not been developed yet or if it hadn't been included. But now was not the time to dwell on that. The poison was ready. All that was left was to find the right moment. Once he reached the maximum level and learned the second level of transparent world, he could initiate the ultimate battle with Muzan Kibutsuji. So far, the plan had unfolded almost exactly as Aoki had anticipated. He could only hope that Kibutsuji Muzan would continue to cooperate and send forth another suitable batch of demons. At that moment, Shinobu appeared, her face solemn. "Mr. Aomura, something's wrong." Aoki asked, "What happened?" Taking a deep breath, Shinobu slowly responded, "Muzan Kibutsuji is here." Chapter 119, A War is About to Begin. Muzan is here? Aoki fell silent. Just a second ago, he had been imagining that Muzan would cooperate nicely by sending more suitable demons his way. But in the blink of an eye, that illusion was shattered. Although Muzan isn't exactly known for his sharp intellect, he isn't entirely foolish either. While it was disappointing, Aoki had mentally prepared himself for this possibility and remained relatively calm. Shinobu added, "It's not just Kibutsuji Muzan who's here. He's brought one of the upper moons, Kokushibo, along with many other demons." This time Aoki was genuinely shocked. Muzan is bringing all his forces for a final showdown? Is he really that decisive? Although this was part of his plan, Aoki hadn't expected Muzan to react so quickly. Why would Muzan go all in so suddenly? Just because a few demons were killed? Impossible. Muzan Kibutsuji doesn't care about the life or death of other demons. The idea of killing demons doesn't bother him. Tanjiro has slain more demons than any of the Hashira. Why would Muzan be so desperate as to start a war just because a few demons died? For him? Not likely. If Muzan had found a way to counteract Space Shuttle, he would have set a trap to kill Aoki in secret rather than making such a big show. Besides, Aoki didn't believe Muzan would find a way to counter Space Shuttle so quickly. Could it be because of the blue spider lily? This was possible. But the timeline didn't add up, they hadn't even had time to spread the news yet. Aoki felt a headache coming on. Muzan might not be a strategic genius, but this time, he had inadvertently made the best decision. Aoki had planned to gradually weaken Muzan's forces while strengthening his own. However, Muzan's early all-in assault had completely overturned his plan, shifting his position from active to passive and from an advantage to a disadvantage. The demons brought by Muzan were likely strengthened. Though this kind of demon had its flaws, its power was undeniable. Apart from the Hashira, only a few in the Demon Slayer Corps could deal with them. Even more troubling was Kokushibo. The Demon Slayer's Hashira didn't even have their marks yet. To face Kokushibo, they'd likely have to fight together. No matter how Aoki calculated it, their strength still seemed insufficient. Shinobu and Kane had clearly thought of this situation, and their expressions were equally serious. 1,000 thoughts raced through Aoki's mind, but in reality, only a second had passed. Let's gather everyone together first. At least we won't be defeated one by one. Where are the other Hashira? Shinobu responded, everyone should be on their way, but a few Hashira aren't here. I'll bring them here, Aoki said. This time, they'd need to put in extra effort. Fortunately, all the Hashira had his spatial imprint. Without further ado, Aoki activated Space Shuttle, and his figure vanished instantly. Father, I'm heading out on a mission. Rengoku Kaijiro called out loudly. He wore a haori with flame patterns, had long yellow hair with red tips like stagnant flames, and his eyes shone brightly. The Rengoku family has been a demon-slaying family for generations, inheriting the breath of flame. Each era produced a new flame Hashira. Kaijiro is the current flame Hashira. Inside the house, Rengoku Shinjiro held a flask of sake and drank heavily, paying no attention to his son's words. Beside him, Senjuro lay near the door, watching them. Sanjiro. Kaijiro gently patted his brother's hair. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the courtyard. Kaijiro instinctively reached for his sword but relaxed when he recognized the person. Mr. Aomura. Come with me, Aoki said. What's happened? Kaijiro asked loudly. He knew very well that Mr. Aomura was executing a plan to deal with Muzan, so if he suddenly appeared at their house, it had to be something important. Muzan Kibutsuji has appeared. The battle is starting early, Aoki announced. Kaijiro's eyes narrowed, and he replied without hesitation, understood. Let's go. Shinjiro and Sanjiro also turned their attention to Aoki. Aoki ignored them, took Kaijiro, and left through space shuttle. Brother. Sanjiro took 2 steps forward, then stopped, his face full of worry. As a member of the Rengoku family, he knew well who Muzan Kibutsuji was and understood what this battle meant. Shinjiro put down the sake bottle in his hand, a worried look in his eyes. Muzan Kibutsuji? Are they really going to fight him? Has the situation really reached this point? As the former Flame Hashira, he knew all too well the power dynamics between the Demon Slayer Corps and the demons. Could they really defeat Kibutsuji Muzan? Kaijiro. Shinjiro's lips trembled as deep regret filled his heart. This might very well be a farewell. At the very least, he should have said some words of encouragement and blessing to Kaijiro. On the other side, Kaijiro was the last to arrive, and now all 8 Hashira of the Demon Slayer Corps were present. Yes, the Demon Slayer Corps currently only had 8 Hashira. Aoki scanned the group. Compared to the 9 Hashira he was familiar with, there were no insect or love Hashira, but there was a flower Hashira. Everything else was the same. However, both Shinobu and Mitsuri were present. They had the strength to fight and would participate in the upcoming battle. Just as Aoki was about to speak, a group of demons surged up from below. Leading them was a handsome young man with a pale face, plum-red eyes, and refined clothing. Beside him stood a man with 6 eyes, an overwhelming presence, and a long sword at his waist. Behind them was a horde of twisted and terrifying demons. Kibutsuji Muzan had arrived. Aoki looked down and locked eyes with Muzan Kibutsuji. At Demon Slayer headquarters, Abuyashiki Kagaya, who had been resting, suddenly sat up, startling his wife, Amane, beside him. What's wrong? Amane asked. Kagaya's breathing was rapid as he replied, the final battle has begun. The final battle? Amane didn't immediately understand. Kagaya turned his head in the direction where Aoki and the others were. Although blind, it was as if his eyes could see through space to witness the scene where Aoki led the Hashira to confront Kibutsuji Muzan and his demons. Yes, the battle that will determine the fate of the world is about to begin. Amane didn't ask how he knew this. She simply held his hand. We will definitely win, she declared with quiet confidence. Kagaya gradually calmed down but sighed, the timing is wrong, it's too sudden. Kibutsuji Muzan must have taken the initiative. Mr. Aomura probably wasn't fully prepared. Amane reassured him, all we can do now is trust Mr. Aomura and the others. Kagaya nodded slightly. Indeed, at this point, they couldn't offer any direct assistance. All they could do was pray for Aoki and others. Chapter 120, 10 seconds. Aoki looked at the army of demons before him. He had considered the possibility that Muzan Kibutsuji might disrupt the plan and show up early, and he had anticipated that Muzan might bring Kokushibo along. But he had never expected Muzan to bring so many of his forces at this time. This put their side at a significant disadvantage. Kane spoke up, Mr. Aomura? The others also looked at Aoki, their expressions grave. Aoki scanned their faces and spoke bluntly, I need you to hold off Muzan Kibutsuji and the other demons for 10 seconds. I have to deal with Kokushibo first. There was no one in their lineup who could match Kokushibo in battle. If Aoki focused on fighting Muzan, Kokushibo would be free to wreak havoc with no one to stop him. Eliminating Kokushibo first was the most effective strategy and would maximize their chances of success. 10 seconds? Everyone looked surprised. Could they really hold off an upper moon demon for 10 seconds? Can you do it? Aoki asked, without offering an explanation. No problem, leave it to us. Kaijiro responded loudly. Sanemi grinned, his eyes filled with murderous intent. It's just 10 seconds. If we can't manage that, we might as well be dead already. Jiomiya added, don't worry, Mr. Aomura. We won't let any demon disturb you while you deal with kokushibo. The other Hashira didn't speak, but their resolve was clear in their eyes. 10 seconds. On average, each of them only needed to hold out for 1 second. No matter how strong Muzan Kabutsuji was, they could surely stop him for just 1 second, even if it meant risking their lives. There was no more time to talk, the demon army had already arrived. Rat, we've caught you again. Muzan Kabutsuji's face was expressionless, but his eyes were full of murderous intent. Aoki didn't bother to hide his own murderous intent. Muzan Kabutsuji, I told you that the next time we meet would be the day you die. I planned to let you live a few more days, but I didn't expect you to be so eager to die. Just as Muzan was about to respond, his eyes caught sight of the blue flowers behind Aoki. He froze for a moment, then his expression turned ecstatic. The blue spider lily. It's really the blue spider lily. After yearning for it day and night, searching for thousands of years, he had finally found it. Muzan Kabutsuji forgot everything else and rushed straight toward the blue spider lily. At the same time, all the Hashira stepped forward in unison, blocking Muzan's path. If you want the blue spider lily, you'll have to get through us first. Out of my way. Muzan Kabutsuji's face twisted with impatience as he swung his arms, transforming them into thorned whips, while another whip extended from his back. The whip slashed out, the wind howled, and the sheer force of it made people tremble. Aoki glanced at Muzan Kabutsuji before shifting his focus elsewhere. Now it was up to the Demon Slayer Corps to hold the line. His figure flashed, and he appeared instantly before Kokushibo. Am I your target? Kokushibo narrowed his eyes as he unsheathed his weapon. The slash, covered with tiny crescent moon blades, filled Aoki's vision. Aoki didn't dodge. Instead, he clenched his fists, stretched his body into a tight bow, and struck downward with immense force. Aoki Ryu, Judgment! Boom! The sheer power of the attack destroyed everything in its path. Kokushibo's slash collapsed, and the demon was cut in half at the waist. The left side of Kokushibo's body exploded into a mist of blood as he was sent flying, his pupils trembling in disbelief. How is this possible? How could he be so strong? 2 seconds, Aoki thought silently as he flashed again, appearing above Kokushibo. 2 demons immediately lunged at him. But just then. Breath of Love, First Form, Shivers of First Love. Breath of Insects, Butterfly Dance, Caprice. A pink blade flashed, and the demon on the left lost its head in an instant. Blood spurted from the demon on the right, and its flesh began to rot rapidly, turning black and purple. Don't interrupt, Mr. Aomura. Kanroji Mitsuri shouted softly, holding a strange pink flexible sword in her hand. Shinobu remained silent as she twisted her wrist, and with a swift motion, her long blade pierced through the forehead of another demon. Kokushibo paid no attention to the surrounding chaos. The pressure from Aoki's relentless assault left him with no room for distraction. Breath of the Moon, Sixth Form, Perpetual Night, Lonely Moon, Incessant. Kokushibo's weapon, the Kyokoku Kamusuri, returned to its original form. As he floated in midair, he unleashed a barrage of slashes. Arc-shaped blades filled with tiny crescent moons burst forth, intent on shredding everything before him. Aoki Ryu, Tempest. Aoki didn't spare a glance at the Kyokoku Kamusuri. He closed the distance in an instant, unleashing a barrage of blows, fists, elbows, knees, and legs, like a violent storm. Boom, boom, boom. Countless wounds appeared on Aoki's body, yet they healed instantly. In contrast, Kokushibo's body was riddled with gaping holes that continued to bleed profusely. Kokushibo found the air growing unbearably heavy, every breath requiring a monumental effort. He realized this was the weight of fear pressing down on him. Only a few months had passed, yet the strength of the defector had grown exponentially, beyond imagination. The shadow of death loomed over him, ever-present and inescapable, just like when he once faced Yurichi. 6 seconds. Aoki exhaled, crossing the space to reappear directly in front of Kokushibo. Breath of the Moon, 14th form, 10-man crescent moon. Kokushibo suddenly turned, swinging his blade backward. The successive slashes formed a terrifying vortex, surrounded by countless tiny moon blades. But before the vortex could strike, Aoki vanished once more. Aoki Ryu, banquet. Bang! Kokushibo's head exploded. He staggered back, but his stance remained unbroken. In the transparent world, he could clearly see Aoki's movements, and the Kyokoku Kamusuri slashed down with precision. The sharp blade sliced through the air, leaving deep gouges in the ground, but it did not touch Aoki. In the transparent world, Aoki had already predicted Kokushibo's prediction. Bang! A heavy punch landed, and Kokushibo staggered, his right shoulder exploding into a mist of blood as the Kyokoku Kamusuri was sent flying from his grasp. A swordsman without his weapon loses most of his strength. Aoki's figure flashed several times in rapid succession. Bang, bang, bang. Kokushibo's left shoulder, both legs, and chest exploded almost simultaneously, the blood mist swirling around him grotesquely. Aoki appeared again, seemingly having never moved, but Kokushibo's body was now riddled with gaping wounds as he collapsed to the ground. 8 seconds, Aoki silently noted. With Space Shuttle no longer having a cooldown, the speed and power of Banquet had increased significantly. But it's not over yet. Aoki looked up. Am I going to die? The shadow of death loomed large, like a giant hand squeezing Kokushibo's heart. He struggled to breathe, and a surge of deep resentment welled up within him. Why? Why are there always such powerful beings in this world? It was like this with Yurichi, and now again with Aoki. If Yurichi was the favored one of the gods, then what about Aoki? As a demon, how could Aoki, a mere defector, possess more power than Lord Muzan? Most importantly, why couldn't he achieve the same? Kokushibo's body suddenly began to swell, with flesh and blood rapidly multiplying in areas without wounds, trying to grow additional arms. As expected of an upper moon demon, Aoki remarked, then without hesitation, crossed the space to Kokushibo's side and extended his palm. An invisible vortex formed. No. The two arms growing from Kokushibo's chest flailed desperately, but they couldn't stop the vortex from consuming him. In the blink of an eye, Kokushibo's body was completely devoured, and Aoki retracted his hand. 10 seconds, just in time. Chapter 121, Miss Tamayo's Sneak Attack. Hoo-hoo. Hoo-hoo. Kaijuro's body was covered in wounds. He glanced at the figure at the center of the battlefield, a whip lashing out from its form, his eyes filled with dread. Too strong. Terrifyingly strong. Although Mr. Aomura had warned him about Muzan Kabutsuji's power, only by facing him directly could he truly comprehend just how terrifying Muzan was. He had nearly been killed in just one encounter. If you're struck by those whips, your life is in immediate danger, especially the ones extending from Muzan's lower body. They're unbelievably fast and powerful. When Mr. Aomura instructed them to hold Muzan for 10 seconds, Rengoku was initially hesitant. But now, he realized that Mr. Aomura had an extremely accurate understanding of both their strength and Muzan's. It's no simple feat to last 10 seconds against Muzan Kabutsuji. No. Even surviving 1 second against him is perilous. Rengoku quickly scanned the battlefield. Everyone was injured, even Himejima was struggling. The others were in no better shape than he was. We can only rely on Mr. Aomura now. Rengoku took a deep breath, understanding that their strength was nowhere near Muzan's level. If it weren't for Mr. Aomura, this battle would have been a lost cause, and even escaping alive would have been a distant hope. As Rengoku's thoughts raced, he wondered, how many seconds have passed? He hadn't kept count, assuming they could last the 10 seconds. But it had to be close by now. I wonder how Mr. Aomura's battle with Kokushibo is going? Rengoku was pondering this when he noticed Muzan Kabutsuji's attacks had suddenly stopped, his gaze shifting outside the battlefield. Could it be? Rengoku was momentarily stunned before quickly turning his head to look. Muzan Kabutsuji's expression darkened. Kokushibo was dead. Muzan wasn't surprised that Kokushibo had lost to Aomura, but how could it have happened so quickly? How long had the battle even been going on? He hadn't even dealt with the so-called demon slayers around him yet. At that moment, Muzan sensed something strange. Before he could comprehend what was happening, a sharp pain erupted in his arm, and he noticed an unfamiliar needle embedded in it. At the same time, the air in front of him twisted, and a familiar figure emerged. Muzan blurted out, "Tamayo? Why are you here?" The pillars, too, were filled with astonishment. They were aware of Miss Tamayo's identity. With Mr. Aomura's precedent, they had accepted her existence more easily. But in their understanding, Miss Tamayo was just a doctor, without any combat ability. How had she managed to get close to Muzan Kabutsuji? And what was she planning to do? Only Kocho Kane showed signs of worry on her face. As Tamayo looked at the face she had despised for so long, deep hatred marred her beautiful features. "Of course, I'm here to watch you go to hell with my own eyes. With this motley crew?" Muzan Kabutsuji glanced at the surrounding pillars with disdain. Tamayo sneered, "Even a weak force can become powerful if united. Besides, we have an ace up our sleeve." "You mean that rat, Aomura?" "He too." Muzan suddenly looked at his shoulder, noticing the flesh around the needle turning black and purple, starting to rot. "What did you inject me with?" "Take a guess." Tamayo replied with a gleeful smile. "Success." The poison had already spread throughout Muzan Kabutsuji's body. In fact, Tamayo had concocted 4 poisons, 3 of which she gave to Mr. Aomura, keeping 1 for herself. She was weak and unlikely to draw much attention in the chaotic battlefield. After becoming invisible through Yoshiro's blood demon art, she had the opportunity to sneak up on Muzan. As Muzan battled the demon slayer core's pillars, she found it impossible to get close. She thought she had no chance. Unexpectedly, Kokushibo's death had created the opening she needed. Whoosh! Muzan Kabutsuji swiped his hand, and Tamayo was sent flying. Her arm was torn off at the shoulder, and a ghastly wound appeared on her chest, nearly splitting her in 2. Kane caught Tamayo and asked nervously, "Miss Tamayo, are you all right?" "Don't worry, I'm a demon, I won't die so easily," Tamayo said with a smile, even as the wounds on her chest and shoulder began to heal slowly. Not easy to kill doesn't mean impossible. Muzan Kabutsuji suddenly appeared in front of them, his deadly whip slashing toward the 2 women. Everyone's expressions shifted. The other pillars wouldn't make it in time, and Kane's position made it difficult for her to defend. At that moment, Muzan's shoulder exploded, and he was sent flying at an angle. "You're right. Demons are hard to kill, but it's not impossible. Take your 6th, no, 7th upper moons as an example." Aoki's figure emerged. "Mr. Aomura." Relief and surprise washed over Kane's face. The other pillars also exhaled, but then shock took hold again. There was no sign of Kokushibo left on the battlefield, his fate was clear. They never expected that Mr. Aomura could actually kill Kokushibo in just 10 seconds. Kokushibo, one of the upper moons, second only to Muzan Kabutsuji. "Leave this to me. You all handle the rest," Aoki commanded. "We'll leave it to you, Mr. Aomura." The pillars didn't argue. They had already experienced Muzan Kabutsuji's strength firsthand. Staying would only make things harder, and it was better to conserve their strength for any potential surprises, like Mr. Aomura's warning that Muzan could split his body and escape. "Aomura," Tamayo called softly. Aoki smiled. "Miss Tamayo, you've done more than enough. Leave the rest to me." He had suspected that Miss Tamayo insisted on coming here not just to witness Muzan Kabutsuji's death firsthand. But since Miss Tamayo was a demon and wouldn't die easily, he hadn't refused, although he hadn't expected much either. Unexpectedly, Miss Tamayo's sneak attack had succeeded. It had truly helped a great deal. If he had acted, Muzan would have been more vigilant, making him much harder to handle. Yes. I believe in you, Mr. Aomura. Miss Tamayo smiled faintly, glancing at Muzan Kabutsuji before picking up a talisman and placing it on her forehead. Her figure slowly vanished. Muzan Kabutsuji's face was dark with rage, but he did nothing to stop the pillars and Tamayo from leaving. That last punch had given him a whiff of danger. He needed to focus his strength on dealing with Aomura first. As for the others, Tamayo or the Demon Slayer Corps, they were nothing more than insects to him. The two stood facing each other. However, Aoki's attention wasn't fully on Muzan Kabutsuji. After devouring kokushibo, a flood of system upgrades had appeared in his mind. The situation had been too urgent earlier for him to check them. Chapter 122, The Path of Demon King. Free skill points, +2. Strength, +1. Constitution, +1. Killed one of the upper ranks and gained 1500 experience points. Congratulations on your upgrade. Ultimate mission obtained, The Path of the Demon King. Aoki's attention was drawn to the flurry of system notifications, especially the experience points. Kokushibo's experience is 1500, just as I expected. Defeating him allowed me to level up. All the effort from the past had finally paid off. In addition to the experience, he gained 1 free skill point, which was equally crucial. 2 attribute points and 2 free skill points. As expected of an upper-rank demon, the rewards are bountiful. Aoki mentally acknowledged Kokushibo's contribution, albeit posthumously. He allocated the 2 free attribute points to agility and strength, reaching over 25 points in all attributes, with strength peaking at 26 points. Combined with the benefits from Demon Devouring, which boosted all attributes by 1 point, the overall improvement was substantial. Yet, this wasn't the most significant impact. Aoki turned his attention to the skill bar. He had previously accumulated 2 free skill points, gained 1 point from the recent level up, and acquired 2 additional points by devouring Kokushibo. With 5 free skill points available, he could now upgrade to level 2 Transparent World. Without hesitation, Aoki made the upgrade. A sudden, cool sensation filled his mind before quickly dissipating. Aoki felt an immediate change. The transparent world now felt like an instinct, activated and deactivated at will with almost no energy cost. Name, Aoki. Strength, 26. Constitution, 25. Intelligence, 25. Agility, 25. Occupation, Hunter, White Walker, Martial Artist. White Walker. Quality. Level, LV20. Skills, Demon Blood 6, Space Shuttle 2, Transparent World 2, Demon Devouring 2. Mission, Path of the Demon King, Ultimate Mission. As Aoki reviewed the system panel, a wave of satisfaction washed over him. He had finally reached the maximum level. It was already November, marking a full year since he had acquired the profession of White Walker. His attributes had evolved from the initial 4454 to an impressive state, over 25 points in all 4 dimensions, with each decimal point higher than his original total attribute. Yet, despite maxing out his level and skills, a new mission still appeared. Aoki's curiosity piqued as he turned to the taskbar. The Path of the Demon King? He had speculated about this before. First came the end of the lower moon, followed by the end of the upper moon. Following this pattern, there should be an end of the Demon King or end of the Demon Ancestor. Regardless of the naming convention, he had always felt there should be a mission tied to Muzan Kabutsuji. But nothing had come from the system until now. Even though it didn't explicitly state that the system has the final right of interpretation, there was no place for appeal. He had no choice but to accept the system's decisions. Unexpectedly, despite maxing out his level, Muzan Kabutsuji's mission had finally arrived. Not only was it delayed, but the mission's prompt and title differed from other tasks. The ultimate mission sounded significant. Aoki's curiosity intensified as another blue screen appeared. The Path of the Demon King. It begins with the Demon King and ends with the Demon King. Those who devour the Demon King will also become the Demon King. Mission requirements: Devour Muzan Kabutsuji. Mission rewards: 1. White Walker advances to White Walker King. 2. Choose one skill to enhance to its extreme. 3. Gain a new skill. Aoki was taken aback, internally exclaiming, "Oh, damn. This mission was incredible." The reward for upgrading professional quality was simply unbeatable. Increasing half a star didn't just mean an additional half-star profession, it meant raising the level cap by 5 levels and gaining one more free attribute point every 2 levels. The other 2 rewards were equally appealing. The ability to choose a skill and enhance it to the extreme was intriguing, though the exact outcome was unclear. The term extreme alone fueled Aoki's imagination. Acquiring a new skill was a bonus in itself. He had long realized that unless the number was extraordinarily high, the benefits of skills far outweighed those of attribute points. This reward truly lived up to the ultimate in its name. The Path of the Demon King surpassed the End of the Upper Moon, becoming the mission with the richest rewards. Even the devious Muzan Kabutsuji carried some worth. But on reflection, what if this mission had been triggered before he reached the maximum level? What would have happened if he had killed Muzan Kabutsuji before maxing out? This mission would likely have been lost, perhaps a hidden or ultimate mission missed. Aoki felt a wave of relief. To maximize his chances, his strategy had always been to reach the maximum level first, then kill Muzan Kabutsuji. This was part of the reason he risked confronting Kokushibo first. Now, it was clear that this had been his most correct decision. Still, Aoki couldn't help but wonder if the hunter and martial artist professions had ultimate missions too. He quickly decided not to dwell on it. Muzan Kabutsuji surveyed his surroundings. The demons he had forcibly created with his blood were no match for the Demon Slayer core pillars and would likely be wiped out soon. But that didn't concern him. Once he obtained the blue spider lily, he would overcome the sun and exist forever, rendering the survival of these demons meaningless. As this thought crossed his mind, Muzan Kabutsuji grew even more eager to end this battle. He had no desire to continue dealing with the defector and the Demon Slayer core. He needed to finish this quickly. If the defector tried to escape, so be it; if not, Muzan would kill him instantly. Withdrawing his gaze, Muzan was stunned, his expression darkening. What was this rat across from him thinking, getting distracted in the middle of a fight? Even the old monster wouldn't dare show such arrogance before him. A rat is still a rat. If it doesn't even know how to show respect, it should just die. Muzan's killing intent surged as he charged forward, unleashing over a dozen whips simultaneously. The air filled with whip shadows, enclosing Aoki, and the sharp whistling sound of the strikes reverberated through the battlefield. Snap! The long whip struck, leaving deep gouges in the ground. Aoki's figure reappeared next to the blue spider lily. "You tried a sneak attack? Unfortunately, it won't work on me." Though most of his attention had been on the system panel, Aoki hadn't been careless. He kept the transparent world active, monitoring all of Muzan Kabutsuji's movements. Muzan sneered, "Are you still only capable of scurrying around like a rat? If you're that eager, let's begin." Aoki's eyes grew colder, his killing intent intensifying. "I've been looking forward to this day, the day I get to twist your head off." == Chapter 123, Aoki vs Muzan. Twist off my head? Muzan Kabutsuji chuckled, as if he had just heard a joke. You? A mere rat who only knows how to run away? He glanced at Aoki with disdain. Tamayo and the other pillars seem to have high hopes for you. Very well, let me personally shatter their expectations. Aoki wasn't fazed. There was no point in getting angry at someone who was as good as dead. There's an old saying where I come from, when a man has been away for 3 days, he should be looked at with new eyes. Muzan Kibutsuji replied indifferently, if you have the ability, show me. You will see, Aoki said calmly. Muzan Kibutsuji fell silent, and after a few seconds, Aoki's expression shifted slightly. He had been waiting for Miss Tamayo's poison to take effect, but what was Muzan Kibutsuji waiting for? Why hadn't he made a move yet? Suddenly, Aoki's gaze fell on the blue spider lily at his feet, and he understood. As a thoughtful person, he decided to let Muzan Kibutsuji discover the truth on his own. In a flash, Aoki appeared in front of Muzan Kibutsuji and threw a punch. Muzan Kibutsuji sighed in relief. If the defector stayed next to the blue spider lily, it would complicate matters, especially if it led to the flower's destruction. He had spent 1,000 years searching for this small patch, losing even one plant would be a tremendous setback. Fortunately, Aoki didn't destroy it. In retrospect, this made sense. Aoki was also a demon and had the same desire to overcome the sun. Why would he destroy something so crucial? However, Muzan Kibutsuji still needed to be cautious. If Aoki became desperate, he might just destroy the blue spider lily out of spite. While Muzan Kibutsuji's thoughts raced, his movements didn't falter. Nearly 20 whips lashed out simultaneously, moving so fast that even after images appeared. Aoki's eyes grew cold as his boiling murderous intent was hidden beneath a calm exterior. His fist continued its trajectory forward. It became clear that Muzan Kibutsuji wasn't adept at combat. Though he wielded nearly 20 whips with ease, his timing and attack methods were amateurish at best. But that was to be expected. In over 1,000 years, Muzan Kibutsuji had never faced an opponent of equal strength. Those who couldn't be crushed by him were rare, and those who could stand against him even rarer. He had never needed any real skill. Relying on basic speed and strength alone, he had easily killed everyone except Yoriichi Tsujikuni. But now, there was a new exception. Boom! The force behind Aoki's punch exploded, piercing through layers of air with a sharp, ear-splitting sound. Aoki-style, judgment. The thorn whips and pipe whips shattered into pieces, with their tips breaking apart. Muzan Kibutsuji was sent flying, his expression drastically changing. In a flash, Aoki appeared beside him, silently slashing down with his sword. Aoki-style, funeral. The sword severed Muzan Kibutsuji's left arm completely from his shoulder. A mouth grew from the severed shoulder, generating a powerful suction that quickly pulled the arm back, but it did not regenerate as it had before. Is this the power of a defector? How troublesome! Muzan Kibutsuji muttered, his eyes boiling with murderous intent. Snap! Snap! The mouth on his shoulder opened wide, devouring the flesh around the wound. In seconds, it consumed everything, restoring his regeneration ability, and a new arm formed in an instant. Simultaneously, the whips from his upper body lashed out again, towards Aoki. Aoki thought for a moment, then used his space-shifting ability to appear on the opposite side of Muzan Kibutsuji. But as soon as he materialized, Muzan Kibutsuji's pipe whip struck out from below. You're learning, Aoki acknowledged, but it's still not enough. He took 2 steps back, then suddenly reached out and grabbed one of the whips, pulling it with all his strength. Tear! The whip was torn straight from Muzan Kibutsuji's back, with flesh and bone still attached to the end. Muzan Kibutsuji grunted in pain as a new whip rapidly grew in its place, while the remaining whips continued to attack Aoki. This time, Aoki didn't use his space-shifting ability. He weaved through the barrage of whips with precision, closing in on Muzan Kibutsuji. Their eyes met. Muzan Kibutsuji's pale face couldn't hide his astonishment, and beneath that, there was a hint of panic. The battle was not going the way he had anticipated. Aoki, however, didn't care about Muzan Kibutsuji's inner turmoil. In fact, it would have pleased him. His fists, elbows, legs, and knees struck with the force of a violent storm. Aoki-style, storm. Bang, bang, bang. Muzan Kibutsuji attempted to defend himself, but was quickly overwhelmed. Large chunks of flesh and blood exploded from his body as he was forced to retreat, blood spurting from his mouth. Suddenly, he raised his head and let out a silent roar. Boom! A powerful shockwave erupted like a falling cannonball. Aoki's blood churned, and he faltered in his movements. Nearby, a demon who had been fighting Ju Tomioka was shattered to pieces by the shockwave, and Tomioka himself was sent flying, blood pouring from his mouth. The battlefield fell silent. The pillars, who had been keeping an eye on the battle, were momentarily stunned. Muzan Kibutsuji had been hiding such a devastating technique. If he had used it on them earlier, they all would have been gravely injured. But as they looked at Aoki, who had recovered almost immediately, Muzan Kibutsuji's face darkened. He quickly distanced himself from Aoki. Crunch! At the same time, a multitude of mouths grew on Muzan Kibutsuji's body, rapidly devouring the flesh and blood near his wounds. In seconds, his body's regenerative abilities were restored to their original state. Yet, his expression remained grim. He had confirmed it, Aoki was stronger than him. How was that possible? The last time they fought in the Infinity Castle, Aoki had been little more than a rat scurrying before him. Now, only a few months later, his power had surpassed Muzan Kibutsuji's? No. It wasn't just a matter of time. He was the progenitor of demons. Aoki was merely an inferior copy, a product of his own making. Even if there were some mutations, how could Aoki surpass him? Muzan Kibutsuji's expression twisted with rage. He had always suspected that Aoki was hiding a secret. Attempts to capture him had failed multiple times, and the threats posed by Aoki had become increasingly serious. Now, today, Aoki had surpassed him in strength. Phew! Muzan Kibutsuji spat out a mouthful of blood, and his expression froze. What's happening? Why am I vomiting blood? Anger? Impossible. I'm not as fragile as a human. The face of Tamayo suddenly flashed in his mind. It must have been what she injected into him earlier. Was it poison? Damn it. Damn it. Damn it. So, they had been prepared for this all along. The atmosphere grew more ominous. Since that man's death, Muzan Kibutsuji hadn't felt the threat of death. But now, his body trembled slightly. The uneasy feeling gnawed at him, making him deeply uncomfortable. Chapter 124, Crisis of Death. Aoki also noticed Muzan Kibutsuji vomiting blood. It seems Miss Tamayo's poison is working. As the saying goes, strike while the iron is hot. How could he miss this opportunity? Aoki's figure flashed and appeared in front of Muzan Kibutsuji. Bang! Muzan Kibutsuji was sent flying again. This time, he didn't dare to be distracted. He quickly got up, spitting blood as he waved his arms to attack Aoki. The fight between Aoki and Muzan Kibutsuji suddenly became fierce and bloody. More than a dozen long whips lashed out, and since Aoki didn't focus on defense, wounds appeared on his body from time to time. But Muzan Kibutsuji fared even worse. With space travel and the transparent world, Aoki easily dodged Muzan Kibutsuji's attacks, while Muzan Kibutsuji struggled to cope with Aoki's strikes. However, Muzan Kibutsuji was worthy of being the Demon King. His body regenerated quickly, even faster than Aoki's did today. Moreover, he could grow mouths all over his body, which quickly devoured the flesh near the wounds inflicted by Aoki, restoring his regenerative ability. The speed was so fast that, at first glance, it seemed like he was unaffected. Devouring demons did affect the overall body of a demon. However, Muzan Kibutsuji's resources were too vast, and for a while, there was no obvious sign of weakness. Though his combat skills were lacking, Muzan Kibutsuji's resilience was formidable. The battle reached a stalemate. But Aoki wasn't worried. Level 2 of the transparent world had no time limit, he could activate and deactivate it at will. Even though his stamina wasn't as great as Muzan Kibutsuji's, given his current strength, he could hold out for days if necessary. Time was on his side. The effects of Tamayo's aging poison continued to accumulate, aging Muzan Kibutsuji by 6,000 years for every hour that passed. By then, even with Muzan Kibutsuji's powerful physique, his strength would be severely diminished. Meanwhile, the demon-devouring effect was also accumulating, causing Muzan Kibutsuji's health to steadily decline. Cough, cough, cough. Ju Tomioka lay on the ground, unable to move. The shockwave earlier had not only dealt physical damage, but had also disrupted his nerves, leaving his body paralyzed. Tamayo appeared nearby, took out a syringe, and administered an injection to Ju Tomioka. "Thank you." The numbness in his body quickly subsided, and Ju Tomioka immediately stood up. Tamayo quickly cautioned, "Don't move. You need to rest." "The battle isn't over," Ju Tomioka replied. Tamayo shook her head. "No, our battle is over. Now it's up to Mr. Aomura." Ju Tomioka looked up. Indeed. All the demons had been cleared out, leaving only Muzan Kibutsuji. Kane approached. "Mr. Tomioka, are you okay?" "I'm fine," Ju Tomioka replied, shaking his head as he watched Aoki and Muzan Kibutsuji. Although his face remained expressionless, a hint of shock flickered in his eyes. So strong. Earlier, the 8 of them had surrounded Muzan Kibutsuji but couldn't even get close to him. In less than 10 seconds, they were all injured. Now, Mr. Aomura was fighting Muzan Kibutsuji alone, and it seemed Muzan Kibutsuji couldn't even mount a proper defense. Only through comparison could they see the difference. Kane's eyes sparkled. "It seems Mr. Aomura didn't show his true strength when he sparred with us before." Yuzui Tenjin stood with 2 swords in a relaxed posture. With the power he's showing now, if he had used his true strength back then, it wouldn't have been a sparring match, it would have been a massacre. Kanroji Mitsuri blushed and clasped her hands to her chest. "Mr. Aoki is amazing. Muzan Kibutsuji is also very strong," Rengoku Kyojuro suddenly remarked. Everyone slowly nodded. Watching Mr. Aomura's powerful strikes from afar, they all felt a sense of dread, unsure if they could withstand such force. Muzan Kibutsuji endured punch after punch. Though large portions of his body exploded with each hit, he recovered in the blink of an eye. His powerful physique was equally astonishing. After a moment of silence, a deep and firm voice rang out, "I feel like we can win." Everyone looked at him, then turned their gaze back to the battlefield, their heartbeats quickening. Yes. Mr. Aomura clearly had the upper hand. It was an obvious situation, they could all see it. Yet, they hadn't consciously thought about the implications before. If Mr. Aomura won, it would mean the end of the 1,000-year war between humans and demons. Their greatest dream. The Demon Slayer Corps' millennium-long pursuit. It would all become reality. This future was so beautiful that they hadn't dared to imagine it, for fear of shattering the dream. However, after the reminder, they could no longer suppress their thoughts. Victory seemed within reach. Could they really reach the other side? Muzan Kibutsuji was sent flying with a massive hole in his chest. His sharp teeth gnawed frantically at his flesh, but his body had already recovered by the time he landed. Tough indeed. Aoki sneered, "But Muzan, is this all you've got? Can you only take my hits like a punching bag?" This was his response to Muzan's earlier taunt. Muzan Kibutsuji's face darkened, both shocked and enraged. He could feel the damage inflicted by the defector accumulating within his body. If he continued fighting, he might actually die. The moment the word death crossed his mind, Muzan Kibutsuji clenched his fists, no longer hesitating. Yes. There was no need for him to get entangled with these disgusting pests. As long as he obtained the blue spider lily and overcame the sun, he could exist forever and fear no one. Muzan Kibutsuji's eyes flickered. But getting the blue spider lily wouldn't be easy. The defector was stronger, faster, and could travel through space. I'll just have to try. Muzan Kibutsuji slowly adjusted his angle. Unfortunately, his subtle movements couldn't escape Aoki's perception through the transparent world. Aoki was momentarily confused, but when he noticed the direction Muzan Kibutsuji was heading, he suddenly understood, a sneer forming on his lips. Finally thinking of the blue spider lily? It's about time I let you in on this. He remained calm, even taking the initiative to cooperate with Muzan Kibutsuji. After confirming that the blue spider lily was directly behind him, Muzan Kibutsuji breathed a sigh of relief. The first step was successful. He seized the opportunity, moving to meet the defector's fist head-on. But at that moment, Aoki's fist suddenly changed direction, striking Muzan Kibutsuji's head instead. Muzan Kibutsuji's face twisted in shock. Dodge? But if he did, he would have to change direction, and all his previous efforts would be wasted. Phew! Half of Muzan Kibutsuji's head exploded as he rolled and crashed heavily into the blue sea of flowers. Ha ha ha, it worked. Muzan Kibutsuji was ecstatic, but in the next moment, his expression froze. Chapter 125, The Truth is Revealed, and Muzan collapses. Impossible. This can't be happening. Muzan grabbed a handful of what he thought were blue spider lilies and threw them away, then grabbed another handful, repeating the action with despair written all over his face. Wood, and more wood. It wasn't a flower, let alone the elusive blue spider lily. Are you surprised? Does this shock you? Aoki looked at Muzan, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. Since I devised this plan, I've been eagerly waiting to see your reaction when you discovered the truth. I'm not disappointed. Muzan's eyes were bloodshot as he glared at Aoki. You orchestrated all of this? Yes, Aoki confirmed. From start to finish, this was a complete scam. Veins bulged on Muzan's forehead as he asked through gritted teeth, so, where's the blue spider lily? There isn't one, Aoki replied simply. Boom. The blue spider lily shattered as Muzan charged at Aoki, his eyes red and his expression twisted into something almost feral. The combined anger of being deceived, the crushing disappointment of the truth, and the looming fear of death exploded within him, pushing his sanity to the brink. Some people can unleash extraordinary power in the throes of extreme emotions. Muzan was not one of those people. His attacks grew increasingly erratic. Combat demands constant calm, and in the transparent world, every one of Muzan's moves was laid bare. Aoki's figure blurred and reappeared in front of Muzan. Aoki style, death. Aoki's palm struck Muzan's chin with a force that sent his body reeling backward, disrupting his whip attack. Boom. Aoki's backhand punched Muzan in the abdomen, forcing his bent body to snap forward. Boom, boom, boom. A relentless barrage of attacks came like waves, crashing endlessly against Muzan Kibutsuji. The intense pain ripping through his body gradually brought Muzan Kibutsuji back to his senses. Boom. A shockwave erupted. Aoki paused. Muzan quickly put distance between them. That technique again. Aoki shook the blood from his fist. The reason Muzan Kibutsuji had lasted so long against him was largely due to this blood demon technique. Though it didn't inflict much damage, it provided a momentary control effect. Each time at a critical juncture, it granted Muzan Kibutsuji a fleeting chance at survival. However, it seems Muzan put a lot of effort into this latest blood demon technique. Is his stamina finally waning? Aoki turned his gaze toward Muzan Kibutsuji, whose expression was now twisted with murderous intent. The blue spider lily was a lie, and his operation had ended in total failure. The battle was nearly over, there was no point in taking further risks. You wretched rat, I'll remember this day. Muzan Kibutsuji's eyes glinted coldly as his arms began to swell. Running away wasn't an option, he knew he couldn't escape the defector's relentless pursuit. The space-warping ability was particularly troublesome. His flesh and blood rapidly expanded, his arm growing as large as his thigh, blood vessels bulging under his skin. But then, the swelling abruptly ceased, and his arm began to shrink, deflating like a punctured balloon until it returned to its normal size. What? I can't split? What's happening? Muzan Kibutsuji's expression soured as realization dawned on him. Tamayo's poison? Damn it. An ant he hadn't even considered a threat had caused him so much trouble. But the one who deserved to die the most was the defector. If it weren't for that rat, he wouldn't be in this mess. Whoosh! At that moment, a fist pierced through Muzan Kibutsuji's chest, emerging from the other side. This is the second gift I prepared for you, Aoki said. Do you like it? Arg! Another violent shockwave erupted from Muzan Kibutsuji's body. Aoki's figure flickered and vanished. Without a second thought, Muzan Kibutsuji turned and bolted, desperation driving him. The ability to split was blocked, taking away his most reliable escape mechanism. The likelihood of death had suddenly skyrocketed. Run! He had to escape no matter what. He could not die here. Dignity, the blue spider lily, everything else, Muzan Kibutsuji shoved it all aside. His only thought now was survival. It's your decision whether to come, but it's my decision whether you can leave. A sneer crossed Aoki's face as he vanished from sight. A sharp explosion echoed. Muzan Kibutsuji had heard that sound countless times today. He dodged instinctively, but it was in vain. A heavy fist slammed into his shoulder with crushing force. Whoosh! Muzan Kibutsuji's shoulder and half of his chest erupted into a mist of blood, causing him to stagger. A massive mouth appeared, consuming the flesh around the wound, and the tissue began to regenerate. But Muzan Kibutsuji's expression shifted in alarm. Why is the regeneration so slow? Aoki noticed it too. It seems this battle is coming to an end. Muzan Kibutsuji's face twisted with anger and fear. You disgusting monster. Whoosh! Before he could finish his words, a heavy blow tore off the left half of his face. Keep those words to yourself. Aoki's figure flashed in and out of sight. Aoki style, feast. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Several shadows streaked by, and bursts of blood blossomed from Muzan Kibutsuji's body. What little strength he had left drained away like a river breaching its banks. His legs gave out, and he collapsed to his knees. Aoki appeared before him, looking down. Why so polite? Are you hoping I'll let you go? I'm sorry, but even if you kneel until your legs break, that's not happening. Muzan Kibutsuji gritted his teeth and swung his whip-like appendages at Aoki. But both the speed and power were significantly diminished. Aoki easily dodged, reached out, grabbed a few of the whips, and yanked hard. Muzan Kibutsuji was dragged toward him, helplessly. Aoki kicked him with immense force. Whoosh! Muzan Kibutsuji was sent flying back, his whips along with skin and bones were torn from his body, leaving him covered in blood with a gaping wound on his back. With a heavy thud, Muzan Kibutsuji landed between two rocks, his wound pressing against the cold, hard surface. The excruciating pain caused his facial muscles to twitch involuntarily. Whoosh! Whoosh! Muzan Kibutsuji felt weaker than ever, reminding him of his frail, sickly human days when he was bedridden for long periods. He used his arms to push himself up, his mind focused on just two words, escape. He could feel the shadow of death looming, and staying here meant certain demise. Just then, the light dimmed, and a shadow spread over him. _________________.